Okay, we can all please stand for the pledge. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I believe we have our invocation today by Dave Mitchell, our police chaplain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's pray. Our Father God, as we come before you, you certainly caught our attention, certainly you have mine, with the many difficult circumstances that surround us in our community, our country, and around our world. God, we look to you and we appeal to you for your power, for your strength, to be able to fight through some of the struggles that are surrounding us. God, I pray that you would give wisdom to our city council, to all of our frontline leaders that are here in this struggle with us. God, that you would bless them with the kind of wisdom and guidance and counsel and decisions that honors the needs of the citizens that are here in our community as well as around the world. Father, we look to you for the strength. We look to you for the kind of guidance that our medical team needs as well. God, I pray specifically that you would bring a vaccine into the minds and the hearts of scientists who are able to discover ways for us to fight back the virus. And Father, I pray for the citizens who are struggling with the illness, for the elderly, for the children who are away from their school, whose parents are struggling to take care of their kids at home. Father, we pray that you would watch over all of these needs that surround us. God, that we would be attentive to ways to help, to assist, to guide, to love, to care. So, Lord, we look to you for this time, that you would be that mighty God that would reveal your power and your presence to help us to fight through this time as well. Father, I thank you for the prayer of St. Patrick, that timeless prayer that he offered so many years ago. When he prayed, may the strength of God pilot us. May the wisdom of God instruct us. May the hand of God protect us. And may the word of God direct us. And I pray that with St. Patrick's prayer in mind, in Jesus' name, amen.
You may be seated. What item was it, Juan? 35A or 55? 55A? I'm going to take things out of order, and we are going to first, I believe, Madam City Manager, which is the item we want to take up first?
55C, sir.
55C. Okay. So we've just come out of closed session, and we discussed this coronavirus in great detail and many things that we believe we have to be acting upon as members of the City Council. And so what I would like to do at this time is have our City Manager describe what we're doing in 55C. And I will also say that by taking this action, I'm going to dispense with an item that I wanted to discuss earlier, which was 85C, consider directing city manager potential, count future council meetings, explore virtual meetings, give her direction on many items associated with the coronavirus. So that now, through an action that she's going to recommend here in a moment, that now encompasses everything. So with that, if I may, I just want to turn it over to the city manager, have her describe this emergency resolution that we're discussing, then I'll bring it back to City Council for action. So with that, let me turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Both the city attorney and your city manager are going to take this item. I'm going to talk about the decisions that you made in closed session that are kind of outside of this item, and then your city attorney will talk to you about the item before you as to what kind of powers and what actions it would enable us to take. So for my report out, I want to let the public know that in closed session it was unanimously agreed that public access to City Hall will be closed beginning tomorrow. So that will be in force. That doesn't impact our employees, so hopefully those that are listening can help spread the word. So full-time and part-time employees should report to work as normally scheduled with tomorrow. Also, as part of this, the City Council meeting and the Planning Commission meetings will continue on unless a cancellation is announced, but they will be conducted virtually from this point forward to also protect the health and welfare of our council members, our employees, and our public. And with that, I will turn it over to Sonia, who will walk through the specifics of the item that's for your consideration.
So, Mayor and Council, what you have before you this evening in this item is a resolution which will proclaim a local emergency. It has a variety of recitals which sets forth the background. But in essence, if you adopt this resolution tonight, what you will be doing is authorizing your city manager to serve as your Director of Emergency Services. As in that position, she would be authorized to extend a variety of contracts and agreements to ensure continuity of services and to address any expiring contracts which would cause the city to lose ground on any of its current projects. This resolution, very importantly, also addresses the issue of price gouging in your community, makes references to the penal code to prevent this from happening, and will give the City Attorney's Office enforcement authority as well as the District Attorney under the penal code. In addition, if you adopt this resolution this evening, what you will in essence be doing is authorizing your city manager to use executive authority to address such things as the collection of late charges or fees and to waive such late charges and fees as she determines is necessary. It will also make sure that there is no interruption of city-provided utilities. She would do so again under her administrative powers. She would use her administrative powers to direct staff and how it handles citations and the enforcement of what we consider non-essential type of activities in the city. And it would also allow her to work with the Human Resources Director to allow employees to use leave balances which might not otherwise be allowable under the MOUs, that she would be able to do this if those employees are experiencing hardships related to illness or caring for children or elderly folks that they have responsibility for. In addition, this resolution will require staff to consistently communicate with the council and the public frequently. The emergency powers will remain in place until terminated by the City Council, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, this is not a public hearing, and I don't necessarily want to debate this, nor I believe does the City Council. I have 4 speakers.
Mayor, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
I did forget one part of this, and the authorization that you're giving your city manager is also going to allow her to adopt an executive order. This executive order would also relate to the executive order signed by the governor yesterday, order number 28-20, and very importantly, this would provide residents and businesses here in the city protection from eviction. It would encourage us to work with mortgage holders and creditors so that we can provide relief to our small businesses as well. And so that will be provided in an executive order to follow very shortly, perhaps even.
Okay, I've got 4 speakers. Do we have comment prior to that? If not, yes, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question. Madam City Attorney, as far as rent protections, as far as any sort of rent gouging, does our executive order and resolution accomplish minimizing or eliminating that option?
We can include within the executive order that we have strict compliance with the new state law that took effect in January, which limits rent increases for individuals.
So our residents will not be gouged during this crisis?
No, and if they are, there are resources that we can provide them to at the state level as well as here locally.
Great, thank you.
Okay, let me, if I may, Daniel Cornelians, Mexil Lopez, and David Cabral, and Maria Ceja. Come on down.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Daniel Cornelius. I'm a local attorney, resident of Ward 4, and longtime resident of Santa Ana. I'm here this evening to ask the City Council to pass the emergency resolution proclaiming a local emergency due to the pandemic created by the coronavirus. And I'm here to ask the City Council to support a moratorium of evictions in the city for residents experiencing financial hardships due to the spread of the coronavirus. Section 5, subsection D of the emergency resolution, as you know, states that if the state of California does not, within 72 hours from the adoption of this resolution, provide eviction relief during this local emergency for residential tenants, city staff shall prepare and produce for this council's consideration an urgency ordinance to provide such eviction relief. On Monday, March 16th, Governor Newsom issued Executive Order N-2820, giving local governments the authority to halt evictions for renters and homeowners. However, the eviction order stops short of creating a statewide moratorium, creating the need of action on this issue at the local level. Many residential tenants and commercial property owners have suffered significant economic loss due to the dangers posed by the coronavirus itself and efforts to control and mitigate its spread. To address this, officials across the nation in cities such as New York, Denver, Seattle, San Antonio, and cities within our own state, including Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Jose, and Oakland, have taken steps to protect residents, issuing moratoriums on evictions. I and like-minded residents throughout the city ask the council to act on this issue immediately. It is critical that this council, as mandated by the emergency resolution, take action, since the state has not issued a statewide moratorium. People shouldn't lose or be forced out of their homes because of the spread of the coronavirus. It is up to you to protect those residents. Thank you.
I would just like to let the speaker know and the public know, because I think it's really important that the authority, if the council adopts this resolution tonight, as some changes that were made to the resolution that you reviewed, the city manager will be issuing the executive order, which will operate as the moratorium to provide the assistance that you're requesting.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Madam City Manager. Mexley Lopez.
Good evening. My name is Meshley Lopez, and tonight I come here in representation of Tenants United Santana. You all received an email from us earlier today, and we've also been in conversations with many of you throughout the day, putting forth an ordinance that would provide stronger protections for the people of Santana. I've heard you all mention AB 1482 that passed in January. That actually does not apply to all forms of all rental units because of Costa-Hawkins. So the ordinance that we put before you, we drafted alongside the Public Law Center, and it's titled Protecting Tenants Act in the City of Santa Ana in Response to COVID-19 Pandemic. And I believe that you all would have had time to review it by now. And we believe that it has the strongest protections that we can enact during this time for folks in our community that are losing time off work, which results in not receiving payment, and all the economic hardship that could come with all of that. And folks shouldn't be having to worry about keeping down a home while there's a pandemic going on. So I strongly urge you tonight to please pass this ordinance. We just need a couple of votes from you all to ensure that those most vulnerable in our community are protected. I know that we're looking to what is going to be passed nationally, but we understand that most times national aid does not apply to folks that are undocumented, and we know that in our community there's a lot of undocumented folks that live here. I also know that in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Santa Monica, their city councils have already done the right thing and they've passed eviction moratoriums, so I urge you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Just want to go ahead and read my e-comment that was submitted earlier today because I wasn't very prepared. But good afternoon, City Council. Yesterday, the Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, announced an executive order allowing city governments to implement measures that protect residents from things like evictions and utility shutoffs, alleviating some of the financial anxiety millions of people are feeling at this moment. I am here to urge you to please execute a moratorium on evictions amid the economic hardships that COVID-19 and coronavirus, this pandemic, have brought to our communities. We ask you to act quickly in putting this moratorium on evictions and utility shut-offs as soon as possible. Just a couple of hours ago, my dad told me that, they told him to go home with no pay. Rent is due in a couple of weeks. 50% of residents of Santana are tenants, right? And so this has major effects in our community. So we're urging you to please act promptly. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Maria?
Good evening. My name is Maria Ceja, and I am also part of the Tenants United Santana Coalition. I am here in support of the Protecting Tenants Act in the City of Santana in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I would just like to say that the safety and well-being of our community should be the #1 priority right now, and it should be above economic and business interests. We need this eviction moratorium that offers several protections for our community. This is your moment in which you, as a Santa Ana City Council, can demonstrate solidarity and support for the community and residents that voted you to represent them. I would also like to mention that a lot of our members here weren't able to come and show their support due to being sick or being unable to present themselves here. So thank you. That's my statement.
Thank you. So with that, I would like to bring it, I know Councilman Sarmiento, you wanted to speak earlier and you haven't spoken yet.
And it's really just a couple of questions. It's not really to speak on this, just to thank those who did come because it is a perilous time as well. But Madam City Attorney, these apply to anybody irrespective of immigration status, right? So we're not going to distinguish on the moratorium on who it applies to. It just applies to our residents, correct? Okay. Secondly, we're going above and beyond the Executive Order 2820 to also not only provide relief with respect to a moratorium on residential evictions, but commercial evictions as well. So that's the third point that I just didn't want it to get lost. And we are going to see, and I think a direction was given to the city manager to activate our rental assistance fund that we have available as we see needed as well. Great. Those were my only clarifications.
All right, let's try to keep it limited. I know you already spoke. Do you have something else?
Just a quick question. Madam City Attorney, one of our speakers brought up the issue about Costa Hawkins. Is that going to prevent us from executing what we had expressed that we wanted to?
Based on the state order, I don't believe so, but because we're preparing our own executive order, I will look into that issue and make sure that whatever is proposed to the city manager accomplishes the intent of the council, which is no evictions for anyone, regardless of what state laws are out there. The executive order was very clear, and that it says cities can go beyond anything that would otherwise be preemption. So we feel that we have the authority to do that. So we will address that issue.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Iglesias, please.
Just for clarification, when it comes to the evictions, both the residential and commercial, we are also encouraging the tenants and the landlords to have a dialogue, right? Because I don't want it to be just a free blanket. Everybody just doesn't want. They just don't want to pay their bills, and even though they have the means to do it, so it's really assessing the need that the individual has in order for us to be really thinking about those that can't make the payment. Are we making that distinction? Because I feel that we have to ensure that they do provide sources that they're in need of, because they can't make the payment. Is that something that we're going to be asking them to do?
Yeah. So, Council Member, the intent behind the government's executive order is really an eviction stay. So it's allowing the individuals to stay within their units and not be evicted during this unprecedented time with the virus and the business interruptions. It would not do anything in terms of at any individual tenant, relieving them of any rent that would be owed. It's merely a measure to keep them in their house.
Okay, in their house and their business.
And
okay.
It mirrors the state order, which specifically talks about the non-payment of rent that's arising out of substantial decreases in household or business income.
Yeah. So then they'll be able to have that opportunity to have that dialogue. So make sure that they're really in need of because they can't make a payment because of the financial strains that they have. Okay, thanks.
Councilman Solorio, and then I'm going to recognize Councilman Peñalosa and let him make the motion, because he's the only guy that didn't say anything, and I want to respect that. Councilmember Solorio.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And really, most of these as clarification. There is one new thing that we haven't, I think, addressed as a group, but at the end, just clarify if anything is incorrect. I do like that my colleagues and staff are really looking to the governor and all of his great guidance and recommendations, and really what we're acting on today is to make that practical here and moving forward as well. The eviction thing is a very critical piece, and it really is going with the guidance in the governor's letter, and rent control. Oversight over that, but as the current law exists. On street sweeping, I know we discussed no new citations moving forward, but just to clarify, and I know Councilmember Peñalosa, also agreed with this, that we waive any that started on Monday, because there were issues there and people already staying home significantly on Monday. So is that what you have in mind?
Yes, council member. So based on the input that I received from you and the ability, if you do adopt this resolution declaring the emergency, what I would do is through the end of the month, I would not have any citations issued for street sweeping, and then I would go retroactive back to, I believe, the 15th of this month, and then pull those from the files.
Great. Well, one more point then, the last question. I know too, we care about our employees, they're part of the family here. We're shutting down public access to City Hall, but some are going to work, some are going to have maybe different schedules, possibly different duties, and the effort really is just to minimize, financial impacts on our employees, and I think that is good, and you'll continue to work on that. The final question I have, and I know Councilman Peñalosa also had this question, I've gotten inquiries myself on cannabis stores, and that really they're more like pharmacies and health and safety, and so they should be okay under the city's perspective and the county's perspective?
Under our perspective, yes, we're not implementing anything that would result in them to have a closure. They would be subject to the health officer's order that was issued today by the County of Orange, which would be, they included in workplaces, they don't want any gathering of a bunch of people. So
Right.
that is something that they could look to for the county for further details on how to comply with that.
And I agree, but there are provisions in there about hospitals, healthcare, safety of the public, and many of these stores also, continue to provide medical cannabis, and so I think that
Correct.
is
There's a
something
very
that's important.
exhaustive list of what's considered essential services.
Thank you so much. Very supportive.
All
Thanks.
right, now call on Councilor David Peñalosa, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for once, I agree with every single one of my colleagues. So what they said, just ditto on everything that's been said. And just a little PSA, we put a little box of tissues by the microphone. If you're going to speak, make sure to use a tissue to grab the microphone. All four speakers touched the microphone, and I looked over, and we're touching their face. So this is a crisis. We got to be very mindful and careful of where we're putting our hands and limiting that contact. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment on the motion? If not, press green. It's unanimous. It's unanimous. So with that, I'm now going to go. I don't believe we have presentations. We dispense with those. But, we do. Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Well,
We have a special presentation.
Right.
Park
I think we
Security.
postponed. Does anybody need to do it tonight? Do you want to do
The
yours?
special presentation.
Go ahead. Well, Councilmember Iglesias is, go ahead. While she's walking down, let me just say a couple words, and that is that the section we just took right now, we talked about a lot of important things, rental assistance, street sweeping and all that, but we all know the real issue is the tsunami that's approaching us. It's the virus, and we have to do everything we can to be safe. Our next council meeting is not going to be in this council chambers like this. It likely is going to be online. And we all have to start thinking differently until the wave passes, it can't be business as usual with a little modification. It's got to be a completely different way of doing things. So please keep that in mind. Councilmember Iglesias.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to thank Jen for being here. This is a presentation for Oasis Center International. It's for outstanding contributions to our Santa Ana community. I'm going to read a little bit of key points, and then I'll have Jen let you know more of the impact that they're having here in Santa Ana, especially with our students. And that's where I met you when I was on the school board. The services that you provide to our students are very critical, and focusing on things that it's taking us in the 21st century and beyond. So I want to thank you for being here. Oasis Center International is a community development organization working in partnership with both public and private entities to bring the arts into the lives of our youth. Established in 2012, Oasis set out to inspire youth to fulfill their highest level of life achievement through discovery and development of inherent creative gifts. With an emphasis on underserved youth in low to moderate income communities, Oasis operates 2 programs in collaboration with local elementary and high schools, and most significantly with Santa Ana Unified School District. These programs cultivate the artistic abilities of at-risk youth while enhancing their traditional education and social development. In collaboration with the Boca de Oro event, the 2020 Oasis Arts Festival was held on Saturday, March 7th, 2020, at Birch Park in downtown Santa Ana. The event centered to families and children of all ages, celebrating the arts through the short films, workshops, demonstrations, and special performances. Oasis Center International provided a great event and continues to provide great services and commitment to our community. So, Jen, do we have it? So, as a token of our appreciation from my colleagues and the mayor here in the city of Santa Ana, we want to provide you the certificate of recognition, which states Oasis Center International in recognition of your outstanding contributions to the community. Thank you very much for all that you do. I don't know what I should do right now, hug you, fist bump, elbow, but thank you for everything, and you know that I really appreciate everything that you do. So congratulations, and I know you have a team behind you, and you guys have done outstanding stuff in Santa Ana. So I don't know if you want to say a few words. There you go.
Thank you, Councilmember Iglesias, and of course all the City of Santa Ana. Oasis Center International is committed to bring arts education back into our public school system, and we had an excellent opportunity to work here in the City of Santa Ana, furthermore several other cities in Orange County and LA, as well as Northern California. What is really important for us is to inspire a child through the arts education. And in our recent event here on March 7th, in our collaboration with Boca de Oro, which is a Santa Ana Unified School District event, it was proven how children were impacted by the work that we've been doing in schools. But at this time, when this COVID-19 is affecting every member of our communities, we're committed in bringing more resources to our students. And so we're going to launch a 7-day challenge on how to keep children creative in their homes with their parents. And so watch us and support us through Facebook and all the social media efforts that we're putting out there to promote the arts education and advocacy for that education. Thank you very much for this recognition, City of Santa Ana. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, don't stand
And then you're going to crop it, right?
6 feet away.
Is that what it is?
6 feet
But
away.
you're going to crop it for us to be close,
Right.
right? Okay, cool. It's just so weird.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to request that Councilor Becerra, you had some folks that you were going to see if they were here.
Any representatives from the Veterans Legal Institute here? All right, seeing none, I think we can move forward.
Seeing none, let's move forward. What I'm going to do at this moment, I'm going to turn matters over to Mayor Pro Tem. I have my father is 94. He just told me he ran out of insulin, so I'm going to go try to figure out how to get him some insulin. So with that, and in this time of this coronavirus period, especially for elderly, we have to take care of them. I also have an 85-year-old mother-in-law that lives with me, and so frankly, I'm just going to turn things over to Mayor Pro Tem. We're probably not going to see each other in this regular setting for a period of time. If you note, we're not 6 feet apart, and we hope that none of us are sick, but this is an invisible enemy. You don't know who's sick and who isn't. In LA County, I understand that even though they're screening a lot when they take a test, you have to have all the symptoms. Something like 25% of all the people getting tested are positive. They have the virus. So our numbers are going to skyrocket, so we really need to stop meetings. We need to stop a lot of activities that we do. Shelter at home in place. You can go out, you can go to the park, you can put gas in your car, but don't be around other people. And especially with senior citizens, make sure you're disinfected, because that's the way they're going to get it. If they're already, in essence, sheltered, it's going to be a younger person that walks in there, walks to them, and gives them the infection. And they're not strong enough to fight this. You can look at the numbers already in many countries. Italy began about 30 days ago. They had something like 200 cases. They have 21,000 cases today. And we're following the same curve right now as Italy. So we need to change things quickly to change that curve and take care of each other and of all of us. So with that, I'm going to call on Mayor Pro Tem Villegas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have a good evening. We're going to move on to the consent calendar. Madam Clerk?
Actually, we skipped a special presentation from
we have a
Park
special
Security.
presentation. Very
Yes.
good.
Mayor Pro Tem, we have our Executive Director of Parks and Rec. She's going to do a very brief presentation. There were requests by several of you that wanted to know how the success of the Park Security program
Very
is going.
good.
So this is the details from that.
Very good.
All right, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here this evening. I'll make this very quick, but I wanted to give you a 6-month update regarding our Park Patrol program. In June of 2019, the City Council amended the Allied Universal Security Contract to allow Park Patrol services within our parks. And in September of 2019, the implementation started. We have 7 Park Patrol officers that have 7 vehicles, and they patrol our parks, our city trails, and the Santiago Creek area 7 days a week. Allied Security also, because it was very important to council, put our city logo on their uniforms, on their officers' uniforms, as well as their vehicles. And they also put light bars and sound systems, or speaker systems, which wasn't included in the contract, but they went ahead and did that. So we appreciate that has happened. We have 2 shifts, and one is from 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. There are 2 Park Patrol officers. They split the city west and east, and they patrol those areas. Sometimes they'll be stuck in areas that are more hot, or there's issues, and so they may not get to every place, but then we will have the evening shift come in from 3:30 to 12 a.m. There are 4 Park Patrol officers at that time. They split the city in 4 quadrants, and again, they monitor 45 parks over 16 miles of city trails in the Santiago Creek area. The Park Patrol submit reports on an app called Helios, and that is the software for the Allied Security, as well as the My Santa Ana app. So if they're walking, as you see in the picture, and see a mattress in the creek, they're going to take a picture, and it's going to go through our system, and we'll deal with that. The activities for everything that's happening every 30 days that the Park Patrol is seeing out there is reported on the city's website. And I just want to show you, we have a dashboard very similar to the homeless, and there's a Park Patrol dashboard. It tells the community that we have an AM and a PM shift. This is how they split the city in two in the mornings. This is the vehicle that they utilize, and these are the officers with, they have their logo on the shirt and the car. In the evening time, they split the city into 4 quadrants as shown here, and then we have a description of what those areas are and where they're located on the map that the city or the community can follow along with. And then at the end of the, I'm scrolling very quickly, sorry about that. At the end of the month, we will put a report. For example, this is January 20th through February 19th, 2020. There were 355 reports submitted. 279 of those went onto the My Santa Ana app, and SAPD received 10 calls. Anytime the park's security cannot handle a situation, they'll call SAPD and they help them out as appropriate. And then lastly, there are top issues reported. So for that past month, it was graffiti, transients, and alcohol in the parks. Excuse me.
So we continue, there we go. We
I
continue with the
sorry about that.
presentation. It's okay.
And so the reports submitted, there has been over 1,600 reports. My Santa Ana app, there's been over 1,300, and calls to Santa Ana Police Department have been 86. This is a great program, and this helps augment our police department. It's not the answer, it's a piece of the puzzle. Santa Ana Police Department is very important, and I appreciate everything Chief Valentin has offered to our department. The police department is very cooperative with us, and I'd like to acknowledge Corporal Kaczariski, who is here this evening. If you can raise your hand. He's a very integral part of this communication that goes on between Allied Universal and the Parks and Recreation Department. I'd also like to introduce Jose Trujillo. He is also the day-to-day operations for Allied Universal, and he is the liaison to the city. And Enrique Marban, he is the city's liaison. And so those three communicate a lot every day, and they are very flexible and work with each other. I'd also like to acknowledge from Allied Universal Josh Warden. He's the Director of Operations, and Steve Nasif, he is the General Manager. So thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate everything that you've done to help make our community a little safer. So I think that in addition to the Park Patrol and Santa Ana Police Department, we have our park ambassadors that are monitoring our park 7 days a week. We've put our park security lighting on from dusk till dawn. And then there's also one other thing I was going to work with the city manager with, and it's a park host, and it's actually people living and monitoring parks. And so you might see that coming to you at a council meeting. I'm familiar with this program. I've done it in other agencies I've worked with, and it really keeps eyes and ears and observations out there in the park and helping the community be safe. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any questions from any council members? Councilmember Iglesias?
The park host.
Yes.
What other city is?
I worked for the city of Encinitas in a park and recreation district in Northern California. So actually, someone lives at the park. It could be in a building that the city owns, or what I'm used to is a trailer or a mobile home that they park. And so they basically live at the park. You provide free utilities. You have their hookups for them, and then they monitor the park. So they're going out, and sometimes it's with a golf cart if the park is very large, or they're walking the park. And so it's just an extra person out there to speak with people and monitor the activities that are going on. Report to the police, observe and report to the police department and such.
Okay. Good.
And I talked to the Santiago Neighborhood Association about that, because I think that would be a great place, and they were very supportive of that. So,
I think all of our parks need a 24-hour presence. So
yes.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. We have Councilmember Becerra and then Councilmember Solorio.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. I just want to thank Lisa for the presentation and all the work that her staff's doing. And, this whole park host thing was something we'd been talking about when I had a chance to visit with her staff at her let's see, was it the Roosevelt Center?
Yes.
And no, it's a great idea. And you know, if you're not able to get into Park Santiago, by all means, Thornton Park's looking for something like that. And I think, like what Councilmember Iglesias said, I think all of our parks really need the 24 hours of observance on them. But I think at the same time, this is a program that, you know, kind of thinks outside the box, which I appreciate that you're doing, and really kind of coming up with ideas to really improve the quality of our parks. And part of that comes from just having eyes on them and making sure that they're kept up to a certain level. So I'm definitely interested in seeing that program come back before us, and thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Solorio, and then Councilmember Sarmiento.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. First, at least I want to thank you for this great presentation and overseeing this program. I know about a year ago, and I remember you saying there was a need for extra security to close the restrooms or in gates, evening hours, mornings. You know, we're having a lot of homeless and other issues there. Same with PD. I know that they were struggling with hiring park rangers. We have a excellent, supervisor and so some part-time personnel. So this program made sense, and my colleagues all supported it, and the city manager was very quick to implement it. So very happy to see all this progress. A common question that used to come up was, yeah, but they're not PD, they don't carry guns, what can they really do? But I think we saw that 600 actions were taken, if you will, and only 5% required, some kind of, PD dispatch. So I think it speaks to the variety of needs out there, and this has been very helpful. I know that, the council is very interested in having the city logo in addition to the Adelaide logo, and that's very helpful. I think as we continue to move forward, something else I want us to think about is that really programs like this without Measure X wouldn't be possible. As well as I know staff is wanting to expand the bookmobile program, or at least bring it back. And so I think when we could put the city logo and maybe then brought to you by Measure X or powered by Measure X is important. I think we've seen entities that have tax measures like OCTA, the success ongoing is transparency, sharing reports like this, but also people knowing that their tax dollars funded that. So I would like you to think about that for those programs. Finally, I do think that the security cameras that we have at many of our parks are working, and to the extent that we can continue to get them at all our parks, I think they'll be helpful as well. And again, one more element under the Parks Master Plan that I know you envisioned as well, that I'm very supportive as well. So thank you so much for this great report.
Councilmember Sarmiento.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for that presentation, but more importantly, thanks for all the work that you've done. You haven't been with the city all that long, and you've done quite a bit. And one of the things I wanted to commend you on was, we rarely get to introduce new restrooms into a park. And I know one of the parks I think that hadn't had a change out in their restrooms was Delhi. So thank you for that. And along with having a presence, and I'm always worried about having folks that may be in danger in the event that they're alone, just so long as we make sure that their safety is taken care of. But speaking of safety, on the design for some of the new restrooms as they come online, just to make sure they're visible, there's no barrier, because I know sometimes the design on some of our older restrooms create like a sheltered area where people can hide, and it's always dangerous for not only our patrol officers, but now also having a host that may not be ready to defend themselves. But to the extent it's open and exposed with doors that just lead into the restroom as opposed to barriers that lead into the entire facility, that's always helpful. So just wanted to thank you on that, and thanks for all the good work.
Thank you.
Councilmember Peñalosa.
Thank you, sir. Just wanted to reiterate what my colleagues already said. Lisa, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and that presentation. That was very informative. I've personally seen a positive difference and change in the standard and quality of our parks, and the characters that lurk at night in those parks. I know that our patrol security services is helping. Just want to also echo what Councilmember Becerra and Councilwoman Iglesias said about that. I heard it from the community, and I see it myself, how it just seems that it's like, Santiago Park. Every cleanup that PD does, it's Santiago Park, and there are lots of parks in our city that would like to see that constant attention. So I just want to make sure that we're equal and doing an equal approach when it comes to patrolling our parks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and a special thank you to all who did support Measure X. These are the good things that are happening right here. We're going to move on to the consent calendar. Do we have some items to be pulled? I know Councilmember Becerra wanted 19D Delta, correct? Is there another item that the council members would like to pull? Okay, we're just going to go with 19 Delta. Could I have a motion on the balance?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the balance, press the green button. Okay, motion passes. And Councilmember, would you mind if we go ahead and take care of a swearing in of we have a young person that would like to come in?
Yes, if I can ask Vanessa Gomez to come up to the front to take your oath of office.
That way we don't keep her here too long. Great.
Thank you, Lisa, for writing me down.
And this is Vanessa Gomez.
Yes. Raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, please state your name,
I, Vanessa Gomez,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
and defend
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
enemies,
foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution
of
the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of California,
of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations. We could do elbows.
Congratulations. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on with the consent calendar. Item 19D Delta. Councilmember Becerra.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. May I have Steve Mendoza come up? Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. I just had a couple of questions about the report. This is the General Plan Housing Element Annual Progress Report that we'll be submitting to the state. Mr. Tai, thank you. So a couple of questions. So first, are the First Street apartments that are being built by AmCal and funded with $8.5 million from the city available exclusively to qualified Santa Ana residents?
So that housing development is an affordable housing development project that will be available to residents of Santa Ana as well as residents in the region. It's not exclusively just for Santa Ana residents, but as part of the development project and review process and working with the developer, the city has been able to work with the developer to market that development project to residents in Santa Ana.
But for all intents and purposes, it's not a project where it will be fully occupied by purely Santa Ana residents. This will be, Santa Ana residents will apply. Hopefully Santa Ana residents will get in, but Santa Ana residents will not be the exclusive, residents of the project, correct?
Our residents will have a preference a higher preference for the development.
Okay. And the same could be said for the Tiny Tim project on 5th Street, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then kind of going down the same path with the project-based vouchers for the 56 permanent supportive housing units that will serve the chronically homeless individuals at the Aqua Housing Project over on 17th Street near the 5 freeway. Will those be available exclusively to homeless individuals from Santa Ana?
No, they won't be exclusive, but that is the funnel into those units is from our homeless services department.
Right, so it's a funding from us, but...
And the funnel, well, I'm sorry, I used the word funnel. We will be funneling our residents from our shelters and other places into it first.
Okay, perfect. And so really, my only other question, so according to the report, the city of Santa Ana has 393 very low-income units and 564 low-income units that have been built in the city since 2014. Now, these amounts are well above the state-mandated RENA numbers by 773% and 1,662% respectively. Of these units, are there any that have been offered exclusively for Santa Ana residents? Not just prioritized, but actually development projects where we could say Santa Ana residents are definitely going to receive these units?
I don't have the complete history, but as far as I know, they're not completely dedicated to all Santa Ana residents. It's available for the general public as well.
Okay. And so one other question is, are cities required to report the amount of units that for low and very low income households that are rehabilitated and that aren't newly constructed?
That is a part of the reporting process where we do have rehab of at-risk unit that comes back into the affordable mix.
Okay. So do we get credit toward our RENA numbers by rehabilitating units versus new construction?
For units that fell out of affordability and has been added to affordability, there's a process for us to add that to the affordable mix.
So it's not purely, as far as our RENA account, it's not just pure new construction. We can actually get some counted if we are able to bring some into income restriction via rehabilitation.
Yes, Mr. Councilmember, if we invest in an existing apartment building and rehab it and make it an affordable unit, we will then get credit for those units.
Okay, perfect.
So we add it to our unit mix of affordable units.
And I, as the representative for Santa Ana on SCAG, RENA is not exactly a understated topic at this point, so that's why I bring that up. And really, this item is just for the council to, and the community to see what we're doing as far as meeting and really exceeding our RENA state-mandated goals. So as far as the specifics, when it comes to our housing policy, I think it's probably best that we discuss that at a future date when it's agendized appropriately. So with that, on this item, I'd be happy to go ahead and make a motion that we move to authorize a submittal of the report to the state HCD.
I'll second with comment.
Councilmember Sarmiento.
Yeah, just real quickly on that, I think the council member's point's well received about some of those projects being exclusively for Santa Ana residents. Madam City Attorney, I know we can't do that according to federal law, although we've always tried, and that we certainly don't want to violate federal law because there are very strict restrictions on that. To the extent that we do try to embed criteria that favors our residents, that is something that is legal. So, we certainly want to do that because these are precious few, and I wish we had more extremely low, because that's where our demographic is. So when we talk about low, very low, and extremely low, we're talking about 80%, 50 or 60%, then 30%. But if you look at the demographic and where our average median income is for our residents in this city versus the rest of the county and the state, we're probably more at that extremely low level. So we need to work a little harder. We have some affordable units, but affordable units that are low are selling or are at 80%, and those are for folks that are making about $80,000 a year, and that really isn't hitting the demographic that we need. And so we need to do a little better job in getting more of those units, but I'm sure with political will and some support, we'll get there. Thank you.
Councilmember Iglesias.
One of the questions that I have for the affordable housing projects that we've already constructed, I believe I asked this question before. Who is the one that monitors, the eligibility of the individuals applying for these housing units? Is it the city, or do we give it to the people who, like property management at that site?
A private developer would have a property management and a qualifying employee, an employee of their staff would be the qualifying agent. We do annual recertifications though, because we monitor the funding source that comes with it. So based on the level of funding, whether it's home funds or our own funds, we will have different verification processes for it.
But one of the things that I would like to ask staff, because I know I received some concerns from individuals who have been applying for those dwelling units, that the individuals at the property management were not very, I guess, their customer service skills needed a lot improvement, to say it in a nice way, because they felt like they were going in there and they were making them feel like, why are you here? And then they were trying to make appointments. I mean, they were hard to get a hold of. So I believe having a conversation with them like that to be more sensitive of what's going on in our community is something that we should be addressing, because a lot of the individuals that applied is like, it just makes us not want to go there. It's kind of like going in like for, to the CalWorks office and saying, okay, why are you here? And just making them feel like, you don't belong here. And they're there because they need the help, and it's so the customer service on that part. I would say that we need to step it up. If there's something that we could do to make sure that these property managements treat our residents with respect and courtesy, it's something that we owe it to them.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Is there anyone else that would like to speak before we call for the question? No. Okay, if you want to approve the motion, press green, please. Okay, very good. Motion passes. We're going to move on to the business calendar. Item 55A. Do we have any speaker cards?
Move the item.
We do not.
We do not. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, push green. That passes. We're going to move on to item 55B. Do we have a motion? Any speaker cards?
We do not.
No speaker cards. We have a motion by Councilmember Sarmiento. Is there a second? Second. Second by Becerra. All those in favor, push green. Okay, motion passes. We're going to the item 60A. Do we have any speaker cards on that? We do not. No speaker cards on item 60A. Any comment? Councilmember Solorio?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I was around really more on the marketing side when the city rolled out its recycling program, and I know at that time, even though it wasn't a full change of services, it was substantial. And if and when we change over again to this new contract, I think it might be appropriate to have as part of this inclusion of commercial bins, including for recycling, inorganics or anything else, new residential and commercial carts, new roll-off boxes and compactors throughout the city. It wasn't clear to me that we're asking that of everybody, but we want to start fresh, if you will, and we want to make sure they have the appropriate equipment. So if staff can kind of look through that to make sure that it's covered and clear, or to make it clear. Earlier too, I was interested in seeing if they could also have an option of implementing earlier. But I think given this coronavirus situation, everyone's kind of slowed down. So in terms of getting any of these supplier equipment items, including trucks, it's probably continues to remain hard. So I won't be requesting that today. But we've just continued this year after year. That I think there's many in the community that are hungry just for a response and a decision by the city, as well as these vendors that are interested. They've been attending, meetings now for literally about 3 years tracking this. But with that, I'm supportive of moving forward. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, we do have a brief presentation if you or your colleagues would like to see that, or we can skip it, whatever is your pleasure.
What is the pleasure of the council? A brief presentation, high level?
Okay.
Very good.
So I will introduce Christy Kindig, who is the one that has been working on this project diligently for going on 3 years.
Good evening.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you so much for your time. I'll make this very brief. So the presentation that I have is covering 3 items. What we're going to do is we're going to try to approve the RFP for issuance. We're going to extend the waste management agreement for 1 year. And we're going to then do a Prop 218 process on that amendment. So that's the 3 items right there. So the background on the solid waste agreement, it currently expires June 30, 2021. We have many state mandates that we have to address. We have the draft that will address those of the RFP, ready for you to approve or amend. The timeline was needed to be extended because of the truck and cart purchases, even before the coronavirus issue. And then we did negotiate this amendment with Waste Management. The issue is Assembly Bill 1594 is alternative daily cover. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Briefly, it means that you can take green waste and cover the landfill at the end of the day, and you can get diversion credit for that. State's taken that away. So what we need to do is go back and make sure that our diversion percent doesn't fall and we fall out of compliance. So by doing that, we're amending the agreement with Waste Management to implement composting. So the RFP, we have increased bulky item collection services. Whoops, don't ask me what happened with that. Oh, there we are. We will have weekly alley cleanup. Right now, we only have every other week alley cleanup. We're going to have programming that addresses every one of those mandates: compost giveaways, shredding events, residential food waste collection, which is a biggie, effective 2022. And then we've included some services that we already have that are outside of the agreement. We've put them in the agreement. Used motor oil and filter and universal waste collection, sharps disposal, small batteries, and C&D services as an option. The timeline here, we're hoping to approve the RFP tonight, get the proposals out as quickly as possible so that we can come back to you in July of 2021 for award. Then will be effective July 1, 2022. So the contract extension with Waste Management, it's just a 1 year, provides that remedy that I told you about for AB 1594. And but as a result of that, there is no cost from Waste Management until July 1 of 2020. The residential rates will increase $1.90 per unit then, and increase again on July 1, 2021 for $1.50 a month. And then we will do a Prop 218 notification in advance this year, just to make sure that all that is fine. Now the Waste Management extension timeline, again, it'll just take us out to June 30th, 2022, so we can start a brand new contract July 1, 2022. So my last slide just wraps up. What we're here to do is to approve the draft or amend it and approve a 1-year extension of the solid waste agreement with Waste Management, and then authorize a Prop 218 process. Does anyone have any questions?
Councilmember Iglesias, and then who wants to go next?
For the rate increases that you have up there, is that something that was already negotiated in the prior contract, or is that something that the city is imposing because of state mandates? What's the reason behind it?
So during their last 1-year extension, the state mandate went into place that removed the provision for cities to take diversion credits from the alternative daily cover, or ADC. So with adding another year extension, the contractor requested to pass on the cost that they were incurring to meet that state mandate, and we do have to be in compliance with that state mandate. So the city negotiated with Waste Management, and they're waiving it for a period of time and then just doing 2 increases as indicated up on her chart. But it's strictly a cost pass-through to the ratepayer to meet the state mandate.
But why are we increasing the rates? Shouldn't that have been something that should have been part of the contract?
At the time that your original contract was entered with Waste Management, it wasn't a state mandate. So the state issued this mandate, and we have to comply with it. And it's hitting during this extension time period.
But if that's something that we would, well, in my opinion, I don't think we should be passing it to the taxpayer because, our contract with the providers, it's a nice incentive for them to do business with the city. So why are we passing on to the taxpayer? So in my opinion, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, thank you. And the state law did change, and it's going to take effect. It's going to affect a lot of the way we do business here in California. Councilmember Solorio?
Yes, just some general clarification. You don't need to get into the details on them, but the franchise fee, is that specifically mentioned in there so that bidders know what our franchise fee expectations are?
Yes, all fees are clearly laid out.
Excellent. And then you probably heard me earlier, new bins, carts, etc. Is that clear enough in here that we want new stuff, or does it need to be clarified maybe as we move forward after this action?
It is clear that we require new carts, not necessarily new bins. That can be addressed.
Yeah, if I would just ask that as part of our motion, that we could have our city manager make sure that things that they would need, that it's very clear, I guess, what we can accept used versus new. I would say that with many of these items we want new. Now a truck may be good if it's fairly new and if it meets air quality standards, etc. But I just want there to be that kind of clarity, and I think in the item that I mentioned, if you could take special care at looking at those things.
And I would agree. And is there a motion on that? Is that?
Yeah, just kind of it's really more of a clarification item on there, but I don't know how our city manager views this request. Do you feel it needs to be an amendment to the motion, or?
I don't believe you need to do an amendment. I think we hear your direction, and we are requesting a lot of new items. So when we get down to the selected proposer, we certainly can negotiate items such as that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very good. So we have a motion by Sarmiento, and you have comment? No, just okay. So you're the second, Sarah. Okay, all those in favor, push green. Very good. Let's go to the next item. Motion passes. We will go to item 60B. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor, we have one speaker here, one speaker card. And Mr. George Urch.
He's an example. He's been coming for 3 years on this thing.
I should have kept my mouth shut, let you vote on the item.
Sir?
Mr. Vegas, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, City Manager Christine Ridge. Here, George Urch here tonight representing waste, weir disposal and Madison Materials. And I just want to thank you for bringing this item forward. We're the other trash company in town. Weir Disposal has been operating in town since 1968, quite a long time period. The majority of their employees are from the city of Santa Ana for both companies, Madison Materials and Weir Disposal. We're excited that you're making us coterminous with our contract for a construction demolition and removal. So thank you for bringing this up, and urge I vote. Thank you. It's the last one.
All right, thank you, sir. Good to see you. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, push green. One question.
Would this be the same as charging those fees, the same thing for this one too, or?
No, this is just ancillary services that you have, and their contracts were going to expire the same time as Waste Management. So this is just purely doing an extension of those contracts to coincide with the timing of the Waste Management contract.
Oh, okay, but it doesn't have the additional fees like the other ones?
No, the state mandate doesn't apply to their type of materials that they pick up.
Okay, thank you.
This is the heavy construction type material, correct? Okay, very good. All those in favor, push green.
Can I have clarification on who motioned and second?
It was Sarmiento.
Sarmiento and Becerra.
On 60B. On this one. Thank you.
Okay, move on to the item 75A. This is a public hearing. This is the time and place to open a public hearing on environmental review number 2018-28, amendment application number 2019-03, and conditional use permit number 2019-21 for a proposal of 7-Eleven convenience store and service station located at 813 North Euclid Street here in the city of Santa Ana. And is there staff available on this?
Yes, sir, we do have a brief presentation. Executive Director Min Tai.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening, Council. The proposed application is for mitigated negative declaration 2018-28, amendment application 2019-03, and conditional use permit 2019-21. The site is located at 813 North Euclid. It's at the southeast corner of Euclid and Hazard. The surrounding uses include multifamily residential to the north, a temple to the east and residential, single-family residential, multifamily residential to the west as well as to the south. The site is currently zoned as R2, which is two-family, and has a inconsistent general plan designation of general commercial. The site has been vacant since 1987. The prior use of the site was also a service gas station, which was demolished in 1987. Since then, the site's been vacant. In 2019, there was an office proposal, however, that did not materialize, and the property owner and applicant returned to the city in 2018 with an application for a service station. As you can see here, this is a perspective aerial view of the proposed development. The building will be located at the rear of the site. The proposed development is a 3,045 square foot convenience store that includes an 1,800 square foot fueling canopy with 8 pumps on a site that's a little bit over half an acre in size. The proposal includes approval for a conditional use permit for a 24 hours operations of the 7-Eleven. The applicant also requests a zone change in order to develop this site. As I mentioned earlier, the general plan designation, land use designation is general commercial, with the zoning being R2, which is inconsistent for commercial use. Therefore, the proposal is to change it to C1, and that will help to bring the land use zoning in to consistency with the general plan designation of general commercial. Another view of the site from a site plan review, perspective, you can see that there'll be landscaping surrounding the site. The store is going to be located at the southeast corner of the site, with the fueling canopy towards the corner. This application was submitted back in May, and within the 20 days of the submission of the application, there was a sunshine ordinance meeting held. During that meeting, there was only one resident that showed up, and that information has been included as part of the staff report. The Planning Commission reviewed this item in February of 2020 and recommended that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the environmental review, the amendment application, as well as the conditional use permit. The mitigated negative declaration was prepared as part of the environmental review for the project. All except for the transportation impact are construction related and will be implemented during the construction process, and the impact will be gone after construction. In terms of the transportation, there is a requirement for a payment of mitigation into the striping of Hazard as well as Euclid, so that was included. The MND was circulated to all interested party in January, and no comments were received. This is a map illustrating the existing zoning, and it's R2, as you can see on the top. The proposed site will be C1, which is a consistent zoning with the general plan. As you can see, it is a site that's located at the corner, and it's proposed to be community commercial. The recommendation, again, is for the City Council to adopt the environmental review, approve the amendment application, and approve the conditional use permit for the proposed development of this gas service convenience store project.
Do we have any questions from the council members for staff?
Yep. Mr. Pro Tem.
Councilmember Becerra?
Thank you, Min, for the presentation. Before I begin my questions and comments, I'm a little frustrated because, and Daisy, I'm looking your direction for a second. So I've asked this multiple times. When it comes to the website and the plans available, as I go on here right now to try to find full-size plans, I can't find them. And I've asked a million times for projects like this, if we could please have the site plans in full scale so that we can, see them at full scale. Because right now, I've got a staff report with an 8.5 by 11 site plan that I'm now going to have to ask Min a bunch of rudimentary questions that I should have been able to look at the site plan and answer myself. So, Min, if I may, so if you could go back, so you're on the site plan. In just above the store block right there, what is that little white square between the two, let's call it a green backwards C right there? What is that?
That is part of an area where they were providing their air pumps, their proposed area for propane distribution, as well as some utility service areas.
Okay. And then going south, that southeast corner there, I see a lot of landscaping, and then a little bit to the west, I see what looks like the footprint for something. What is that?
So towards the middle of the site at the south.
Directly to the south of the store. Yep.
Right.
Oh, just a little to the right. Right there. Oh.
So this area will be an area where they will be locating some of their required air quality management and filtering equipment, and will be behind a fenced area. So if there was a concern that was brought up whether or not this area is accessible to the public, it will be fenced in, will not be accessible to the public.
So is the fence that's being proposed flush with the store?
It will be flush with the store, correct.
So literally it'll go straight down from the western elevation of the store down to the southern fence?
Correct, to prevent access to the southeast corner of the area between the building and the property line.
So it'll be very lushly landscaped, but not accessible?
It's an area where their equipment will be stored as well.
Okay. And then just one last question. So am I to assume that to the left of that on the same southern side, that's the trash enclosure?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm sorry to belate the point, but it would really be helpful if in the future we're able to have those full-scale plans, because also not just for myself or my colleagues, but just for the community at large, because if I live next to this thing and I would want to look and see what that was, and rather than burden staff with these questions, if the plans are available in full scale, it's easier to see. But, Min, thank you for the clarifications on that.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Becerra, to your point, we did ask staff to provide to us a digital copy, and whatever they provided to us is available on the website under 75A. So there's a staff report, which is not a digital copy, but then 75A Exhibit 2 and 75A Exhibit 4 are both digital copies that were provided to us by staff. That was the best they could give us.
Well, okay, if we're going to have this discussion, so I assume, and Min, correct me if I'm wrong, but the applicants provide you a full-scale set of plans that are digital, correct?
A PDF copy, correct.
But I mean, it's not an 8.5 by 11, right?
It's not a scanned copy, 8.5 by 11. It's basically a digital native file that you can zoom in or zoom out.
Okay, so it's something that, I mean, for all intents and purposes, if it was printed, it could be 11 by 17. If it was full scale, it could be 24 by 48. Okay.
Correct.
Because that's not what I'm seeing here. And so I really, frankly, I don't care how you guys figure it out, but pretty please figure it out.
We will figure it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a motion, or Councilmember Peñalosa, followed by Iglesias.
I agree with Councilmember Becerra just on the type of images we're getting here. I was going to say a year ago when I came in, they were grayscale, small, distorted images. So we're moving forward, and that's important. But I do like that suggestion that the better quality that we could get, the higher quality we could get, the better. Absolutely. And in regards to the zoning, Min, I know that you mentioned it was R2 before, but you also said there was a gas station on there up until 87. I just told Councilmember Solorio that I'm going to start wearing a pin that says "Before I was born" because everything in the city seems like to have been done before I was born. But the gas station, how was that possible to have an operating gas station in a R2 zone? Was it just built illegally without any zone changes, or?
It was legal non-conforming. What that means is that the use existed before the zoning designation for that area was designated for residential. But the general plan, as you saw when it was updated in 1992, changed that to general commercial. And so the goal was to get that corner into compliance and with commercial use opportunities.
So there were never any homes there, right? It was always just...
Not that we are aware of. Prior to 87, it was a gas service station, and since 87, it's been vacant.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Iglesias.
I have a couple of questions for this item. I received some concerns from residents that live in that area, because I believe sometimes I don't know if it's Councilmember Villegas or myself that represent that area. But their concerns was, I know they want it to be a 24-hour operation business, but being so close to homes, their concerns is about the noise, especially after midnight. So one of the requests that was put before me was, instead of being a 24-hour operation, couldn't it be maybe from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m., or 12 a.m., so just let it be closed from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Our code currently requires that any operations that is being proposed beyond 12 a.m. requires a conditional use permit, and that's what the applicant has applied for. They're requesting for 24 hours operations. That's their application, and that's something we would be reviewing.
So right now, by right, they have it from what, from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m.?
They can operate to 12 a.m.
To 12 a.m. From what time in the morning, though?
I believe it was, if you give me a second, please. So it's restricting from midnight to 5 a.m.
5 a.m.
Yes.
So right now they're applying for the conditional use permit so they could go fill in that gap for those hours then?
Correct.
Okay, so I heard from residents and they were not happy that, they're happy that they're going to be built something there because it's an empty lot, but the fact that those, additional 5 hours is really being close to homes, their quality of life is also going to be affected. So in my opinion, I don't agree with granting them the conditional use permit, because the quality of life for those individuals are going to be affected. And for the most part, the perception is, that side of Santa Ana, it's always ignored by the city. Pretty much everything gets done and no one really takes the notice. So I'm hoping that, we're able to give also those residents in that side of town the courtesy too of having a quality of life that they deserve to. Thank you.
So that the conditional use permit after midnight, that's not in question today. That's not.
It is.
It is before us today. Oh, okay, very good.
Yes.
And we have the applicant. Is the applicant here?
The applicant is available for questions.
Okay.
Can I ask one question real quick?
Go ahead, Councilmember,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. Min, on the site, you'd mentioned some of the mitigation measures and the fact that it was previously a service station. Was there any records of any leaking underground storage tanks or anything of that nature on the site previously?
So all storage tanks has been removed from the site. However, as I mentioned, as part of the construction process, there is a mitigation for the developer and contract to submit a soil management plan with exploratory options, so that if they do encounter any unanticipated soil that may require additional study, that mitigation is there.
Okay, but the good thing though, if they're this far along, especially from the previous service station, they've already probably got a clean bill of health from the state.
That is the assumption, and based on the information that we have, but however, to be out of an abundance of caution, that mitigation was put into place.
Well, no, I appreciate you putting that in there. I think it's good to know that the state has, for all intents and purposes, blessed it, but we're just taking that extra step to make sure that the site doesn't have remaining pollution on the site. So thank you.
Is there any other questions for staff? Because if not, I'm going to call up the applicant. Yes, come forward, sir. You have 5 minutes. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, and staff. My name is Don Madrid. I'm with a company called ASI Development. Our offices are located at 5932 Bolsa Avenue, Suite 107 in the city of Huntington Beach. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak. We've been working with staff for almost 2 years now on this project. So although the City Council may be seeing this for the first time this evening, we've been at 2 years worth of meetings, 2 years worth of studies, 2 years worth of plan revisions to get to this juncture. We believe that we put our best foot forward with what you see tonight, and we've been able to do that with staff's guidance. With regards to noise, we're sensitive to that. A CEQA study was done for this project, and that CEQA study includes a review of a myriad of potential project impacts, one of which includes noise. That study concluded that there are no noise impacts associated with this project. This property is on a major arterial. There is a level of ambient noise on Euclid and Hazard. Our project will contribute little to no additional dBA to that existing ambient noise. I've been personally in communications with the adjacent property owner to the south. He's called us on numerous occasions for different issues that have arisen out of the fact that the property is currently vacant. And he's happy to see and hear that we've come this far in our approval process and is looking forward to the store being constructed at some point in time. With regards to 24 hours, 7-Eleven stores are known to its customers to be open 24 hours. We like to offer those services to the customers at this particular location if the City Council sees it fit. When we received approval from the Planning Commission in February, it was a unanimous approval. There was a lot of dialogue, a lot of discussion regarding various issues. At the conclusion of those deliberations, they felt it was appropriate to give us an approval. So needless to say, we were very delighted when we reached that point, and we hope that the City Council agrees with staff's recommendation and they see fit to approve the project tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a question from the council members for you. Councilmember Sarmiento.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you for that overview and that summary. So just a quick question. This is more for staff. I think that I have questions for our planning directors. So has this been, discussed and fully vetted with that area and the neighborhood and folks there? Do they understand? Because I think maybe there might be confusion where a 7-Eleven is introduced as a standalone, market versus maybe a dual purpose and having a service station as well. So maybe that changes the discussion, or maybe that changes how the residents receive it. But your thoughts?
We have an extensive public engagement process for all of our public hearing requirements. As I mentioned, within 20 days of submission of the application back in May 2018, the applicant engaged the public in the Sunshine Ordinance meeting. At that meeting, only one person was present. We had 2 meetings at the Planning Commission level where we provide notice to the public, and at those meetings we had several members of the public showed up, but they did participated and provided comments to the Planning Commission. So the areas in terms of coverage and outreach, it's been vetted through our public hearing process.
Okay. Well, look, I guess sometimes we should show much deference to folks that have looked at it closer, to the extent that there is some difficulty in seeing maybe some of the renderings or maybe some of the, the view of the design, and having looked at it just recently, I'm open to having the applicant, if he wants to engage the public a little bit more on that and engage the residents in that neighborhood, if we feel that there hasn't been sufficient discussion there. Again, to the extent that we are having some difficulty seeing that there's compatibility with both of those, because what was there prior to to this development? What was
There was a gas service station at this location prior to 87.
So look, I'm open to that as well if we want to. I'm not sure if this is a time-sensitive item.
I would let the applicant answer that, but he's been working with on the application, as we mentioned, since 2018. So we're processing as part of our public hearing process. Do you have any response?
The mic again. Thank you, Ben. We're certainly sensitive to any concerns that the residents might have, even though those concerns are being brought to the council at this late hour. However, that being said, please understand that there is an owner of this parcel that has carried the cost of having a vacant piece of land for over 2 years. The parcel has been vacant for 33 years. There are rules in planning, and I believe as an applicant we have followed all of the rules to get here tonight. We did conduct our sunshine meeting in 2018. With that, there was a notification that went out to a 500-foot radius. One person attended. The Planning Commission hearing was notified. The first meeting was notified. The second meeting was notified. This meeting was notified. With all that activity, I feel we've made a concerted effort to have the community be involved. The poster for the sunshine ordinance was posted on the fence on the property. I could have taken that down. To this day, that sign is still up with my phone number on it. I have yet to receive any phone calls from anybody regarding this project. So as much as I'd like to say, yeah, let's continue this, please recognize that it would be a burden to everyone that's been involved with this project so far.
And I certainly appreciate that, and that's why I guess I wanted to get the director's just history on this, right? I think one of the things that's compelling to me is 7-Eleven is a very well-respected franchise in the city. Just tonight, I got word that a few of the stores are going to be offering free pizza and Slurpees to our students who are out of school, so long as they show their school ID. That is a big, big benefit for many kids who don't have meals easily accessible. So sensitive to you as well. But look, as an applicant, you also want to do the right thing. I think you also understand that this is a discretionary process. So I don't think there's anything that binds us to act on it, anytime soon, especially if we have reservations. I think the continuance was more afforded to the ability for you to make sure that, some of the calls and text messages, I guess people call us sometimes before they call the applicant and say, we're a little apprehensive. So I hope you understand that as a deliberative body, we certainly have that right legally to go ahead and consider it further. So, we're just trying to make sure we balance the interests here, and we certainly know you have an interest, but we also know that we have an interest in making sure that we make a thoughtful decision.
Sure, we understand that. Thank you very much, and we'll respect whatever decision the council makes this evening, and we'll continue to work with the community and staff as may be required.
Councilmember Iglesias, you have another, and then followed by Councilmember Solorio.
So, the concern, the calls that I got and the individuals that approached me, we're okay. It's nice because something has to be built. Very happy that something's being built, but their concern was more the conditional use permit, with the hours being 24-hour operations. So, when you state 500 feet, for me, that's always been not enough. I think we should engage more than individuals around there than would live within 500 feet. So my recommendation would be if we were to move forward with 1 and 2, but not granting the conditional use permit, just maybe seeing something like what Councilmember Sarmiento was saying, maybe going back to the community and assessing that. I know we did that with with the other 7-Eleven that we just, I guess, came before us, the one on First and Center. Is that going to be a 24-hour facility?
That one was going to be 24 hours as well.
But they required like security. I know that there was a lot of things that we've, I guess, asked of the applicant to provide. So, for me, it just goes back to understanding the quality of life of those residents that live there. Having something built there would make it look nice because it's just an empty lot. But the conditional use permit, that's where I have the issue. So, reaching out to the community to see how comfortable they feel with that. Maybe moving forward, maybe after they see that may not be a big of issue, maybe it can come back to us. But that's where I stand. I'm not comfortable with extending the hours to 24 hours.
Councilmember Solorio?
Thank you. The question I have, and maybe you can answer it tonight or with more time moving forward. My main concern is with safety and the homeless crisis that we have. I think our residents do love the stores, because our folks are always on the go, so they get their coffee there, their meals there, their waters there, their Amazon packages there, everything, right? And some stores are better than others on how they deal with homelessness and loitering. But unfortunately, most food for lesses tend to be some of our bigger magnets for loitering and issues related to homelessness. So can you tell us how you're going to address that situation on a permanent basis?
Sure, yeah. So thank you, Councilman. The issue of homelessness is, as you guys are aware, is a very complex societal problem, and no single business is immune to that issue. That being said, we believe that 7-Eleven is just as prepared, if not more prepared, than other retailers to deal with that issue in an effective way. Fortunately, from what we understand...
But I'll stop you there. We could go to a number of 7-Elevens here and compare them to another retail store, and 10 to 1, there'll be more homeless at 7-Elevens than the others. So
I respect that.
I'll do a pause there.
Okay, thank you for that. From what we understand, although there may be some homelessness in the area, it's not an acute problem as it may be in other parts of the city. So that's a plus.
And we would like to keep it that way. Would be my point. That right now there isn't an acute homeless crisis there, and this could generate issues.
That. So with that potential issue, that's one of the reasons why staff asked us to install fencing to block off that easterly portion of the property to prevent access to that unseen part of the development. Vacant lots, commercial developments, industrial developments that are unoccupied at night tend to be an attraction for those that would be seeking shelter, such as the homeless. With our development, it is proposed to be 24 hours operation. Hence, we would have employees and managers on site 24 hours a day. So you have this corner that's currently vacant and dark. With this development, the property will be well lit, and we'll have a presence on the property that doesn't exist today, along with a robust security camera system.
So just a couple of follow-up questions then. Number one, if I were to drive by right now, are there any homeless on that property?
We've had intermittent problems with 1 or 2 homeless individuals, which is the reason why
But on a daily basis, or that was abated a number of months ago, or?
The property owner, from what I understand, because there's 2 different entities. There's the current property owner, and then there's 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven is the applicant for this development. From what I understand, the homeless are asked to vacate the property because it's private property. They're not allowed to be there. The property is fenced, and they do come back from time to time, so we're having to address that issue.
I appreciate that answer. Another question I have is, and I think we might have done it with the last 7-Eleven, as Councilmember Iglesias was trying to remind us of what we did there. I think there we required some security staffing. Is there security staffing here, and what commitment is that?
There is no requirement for security on this property, on this particular project. Nor has there been any discussions with regards to that. I believe, again, that this particular area is different, the situation is different than what we had down at First Street. The project on First Street, although approved and conditioned for security, for all intents and purposes, from 7-Eleven's perspective, is a dead project. The requirement for security made that project economically unviable, so they are not moving forward with that project. We're hoping that with this one not being in the same area as the other store on First Street, that perhaps rather than assume we're going to have a problem and attach a condition of approval that could possibly kill this development, that you would give us an opportunity to move forward with this project as conditioned by staff, as approved by the Planning Commission. And if it does become a problem, we can always revisit it. We can come back and say, okay, maybe this isn't working. Maybe we need to look at security. But we're optimistic that that's not going to be a problem.
I mean, I'm probably inclined to want to have more time to review all these things, but if it were tonight or then, I know sometimes we'll say there's a mandatory review at 6 months or a year to see how it's going, and then we could see how it's going, and if we need to add additional measures, we could, at that point in time. But tonight, I'm still a little bit sensitive, especially since it's 24/7 and since it's largely a non-issue right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Peñalosa, then Becerra.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. I just had the similar concerns as some of my colleagues in regards to the time being requested 24/7, especially when just considering those homes that are directly next to it. I'm not comfortable just moving forward because of I haven't heard from them, and a lot of times, in our community, we do put out these notices and have these sunshine meetings, and unfortunately, our community don't see them for numerous reasons. Working class community that aren't aware of just their ability and power in their local government to have a say. So, I'm not comfortable with the current time being requested, 24/7, because of its proximity to homes, and those are my comments.
Councilmember Becerra, and then I'm going to close the hearing. I'm going to have the public speak if they want to.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah.
So I think one of my colleagues brought this up earlier, and I want to ask more specifically, was there direct contact made with the folks to the east of the site? I know there was the 500 feet radius notifications twice for each Planning Commission hearing, but specifically, did anybody just go knock on a door and say, hey, what do you guys think?
No, we didn't knock on any doors. Adjacent to the site to the east, I believe, is a Buddhist temple, if I'm not mistaken. Do you agree? We did not knock on any doors. We normally don't do that. We felt it was sufficient to send out that notification as part of the sunshine ordinance. If it pleases the council, we're happy to do that again. We can send out a similar notice and do another community outreach as part of the parameters in that sunshine ordinance.
Well, help me understand something. So if maybe I misunderstood. So you had mentioned you had contact with the property immediately to the south.
Correct.
Was that initiated by you or them?
It was initiated by them. I believe they obtained my contact information off of the sunshine ordinance posting on the property.
The sign that's still there, correct?
The sign that's still there. At least I believe it's still there. It's laminated and has grommets. It's a pretty hardy sign.
Well, I appreciate what my colleagues are raising as concerns. Personally, I think a 7-Eleven that's open 24 hours is a good thing. I think that, it's eyes on that corner. I know I have folks that I know that live in that area, that there is at least 1 to 2 homeless individuals that camp out on that site. But, again, it's the concern I have really isn't so much, yes, once new development comes in, you would hope that those 1 or 2 individuals won't be camping there. My concern, though, is we have a 7-Eleven on Main and Dyer, and, sometimes I get it confused with MHA as far as how many homeless folks are there. It's definitely overrun, absolutely overrun. And so what I think one of my colleagues was asking you about, what would you do? It sounds great to say we're going to do things and stuff. A lot of good things, but not a lot of bad things. I get it. But what specifically will this operator be able to do? I know one thing that my colleagues and I have talked a lot about is, filing the Form 602 so we can enforce trespassing. But, I'm kind of torn because I don't agree with the idea of you guys having to hire this additional security guard because, as you mentioned, that could be very cost prohibitive. But at the same time, I can't, in good conscience, approve something or vote to approve something that becomes a magnet. And while there are only one or two homeless folks sleeping on the site now, again, once a 7-Eleven is there, I would just like a little bit more assurance that there are conditions in place that could do something. Again, I support the 24-hour operation. I think it will be an amenity for that area. But in order for that to happen, I would be more comfortable knowing that there are more proactive measures to prevent the homeless from coming around and it turning into the 7-Eleven at Main and Dyer. And I think one thing for my colleagues real quick, just, as we look at these projects, we're empowered to condition these projects. That's why they're called conditional use permits. So, let's be creative and try to help these businesses. I think the concerns that my colleagues have brought up tonight give me pause as to moving forward, but I would just say as we proceed with this, let's try to enable the businesses, not disable them, in the sense that, if there's a way to approve them with a condition or two, let's do it. But I think given the concerns that my colleagues have brought up tonight, I don't know where we're at, and once we close the public hearing, we can have that discussion. But thank you for answering my question.
I appreciate your comments. If I may real quick, what we found is that the success of our stores are, with regards to those types of issues, is largely predicated on who the operator is. And to the degree that 7-Eleven takes that interview process of a potential franchisee in a concerted way and take it seriously, which they do all the time, but with every new store, they learn. As an organization, we learn, just like any other institution, you're constantly learning. So for this particular store, as we would any store, we would look for a franchisee that has demonstrated that they can run a successful store in a similar community with similar issues. And hopefully that goes a long way towards curbing some of these potential issues that you're concerned about. We post no loitering signs on our properties, and we keep the glass free and clear of any kind of advertisement. That way both law enforcement can see into the store and our store employees can see out of the store and monitor what's going on the subject property and deal with it appropriately.
Well, just real quick, since we're brought that back, no loitering signs are ignored. Let's be realistic.
Yeah.
They are. And as far as your windows being clear, that's by our municipal code. So you'd be complying, not doing anything above and beyond. Right. But what I'm concerned with, and again, I'll say one more time, is I'm concerned with other 7-Elevens I've seen. And you mentioned that the 7-Eleven organization, which I'm happy to see them come in. So I'm not telling you that I oppose a 7-Eleven, but I do have concerns that seeing a 7-Eleven in our city that has become a magnet for the homeless, and you're saying that they've learned from their experiences, but I guess they're still learning when it comes to Main and Dyer, right? Because there are still a lot of homeless there. And again, my concern, I'm not going to speak for my colleagues, but my concern is that this situation that I'm seeing over at Main and Dyer proliferates over at this site. And so I want to see this thing approved. I want to see the development happen. I just want to feel comfortable that the appropriate conditions are in place so that we don't come back and say, oh my God, why did we approve that thing? Look at the nightmare it's causing these residents.
Okay, very good. I'm going to make my comment, and then I'm going to close. I'm going to ask for the public if they want to make a comment also. How big is that wall that goes around the half of the property?
The existing wall, I believe, is 6 feet.
About 6
I believe
feet?
we're conditioned to raise it to 7 feet.
7 feet? Okay. And is it cement wall?
It's a cinder block wall.
Cinder block wall,
Yeah,
okay.
and we're conditioned to add some sort of a creeping vine to the wall as well.
I think a little different about the way my colleagues are thinking. I know you have a Buddhist temple 2 places over. You have a school 1 block down, an elementary school. You have a park right next to it. And then that's to the west, to the east. And then 1/4 block up, you have a big, huge business complex with a music academy there. So there's noise around there. There's traffic. There's people driving around. This is a place that I think a lot of the residents and the people in the area would use, especially for gas, because I was looking around. There isn't anything around there. This is a good spot, actually. But then again, we have to do what's right for our residents. That's the main thing. But this would be a good asset for them, something that where they could go and get milk at 2 in the morning or something, or formula, or what have you, gas. Maybe you have to go somewhere. You don't have to travel so far. So I am concerned about the homeless issue, but that's at every store. Let's just be realistic. Every store might have somebody or something, and some of them, are different. I also do believe that it's up to the operator, because these are all franchises, and it's up to them how they're operated. So those are my quick thoughts. I like the fact that you're raising the wall up. I'd raise it up to 8 feet if that would be a good thing. But anyway, thank you, sir. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak?
Thank you very much.
One person? Okay. Do you have a speaker card?
I do not. But you.
That's on a different agenda item. Okay. No one from the public wishes to speak on this item here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on this. And what is the pleasure of the council? Councilmember Iglesias.
Like I said, what I've heard and what I like is that we're moving forward with building something there. So I would like to see if I could do my motion to go ahead and approve 1 and 2, and I guess table the conditional use permit for future consideration.
So you want to approve items 1 and 2, and then the CPU, you want to leave that? Yes. You want to wait? You want to table that for us? Okay. Where's the city manager at?
It might be where they'd ask the applicant if, with the approval of only the first 2, if they would move ahead with the project.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, staff, thank you. I have to speculate in response to that question. 1 and 2 consists of the zone change and the CUP to allow for the gas station, correct?
No. 1 is mitigating negative declaration, 2 is the zone change.
Okay, so that'll allow us to build a store with normal hours.
From 5 a.m. to 12 a.m.
We would like to receive at least the approval for those 2 items this evening, and would like to reserve the opportunity to come back after having worked with the community at the City Council's pleasure. We would like direction on exactly what you want us to do in reaching out to the community so that we can come back and report.
Mr. Pro Tem, if I can ask Councilmember Iglesias, perhaps if you'd be open to it, maybe we make a motion to approve items 1 and 2, and if possible, continue item 3 for 30 days, and then have them come back after they've done the outreach.
For sunshine. Yeah. We need more than 30 days for community outreach.
So, okay, what would that?
60, I think.
60 would be an appropriate amount of time.
And obviously, given the circumstances that we're facing, 60 days might be more appropriate. But
and as city manager, is that?
Yes, I
Your
would.
thoughts?
I like that motion. So approval of the first 2 with the third one continued for at least 60 days, and we can touch base with the applicant.
And to add to that, to also for that hearing for the continued item number 3, we would go ahead and redo the notice for that.
So is that?
Can we do it for 90
motion?
days? Because
How many?
for 90 days, can we bring it back in 90 days with a conditional use permit?
You actually don't have to specify a
Okay,
definitive period. It could be when the applicant is ready to bring the item again without doing a date certain.
We don't need to do date certain.
No. Okay. So
that's
my
your
motion then.
Make
That
it
was my
clear?
motion.
Okay, Madam City Manager, we're clear on the motion, correct?
I believe it's a motion to approve item 1 and 2 and to continue until the applicant has done further outreach on item 3.
Very good. And is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Councilman Peñalosa?
Mr. Pro Tem, and just had a little comment to make to the applicant, because I know you mentioned that you don't really do door knocking or that kind of community outreach, but I don't want to see a mailer sent out again to the nearby residents and then come back in 60 days and be like, hey, nobody showed up or anything. I mean, knocking on doors, even if it's the handful of homes that surround the property, goes a long way in our community. People like that. Reaching out to the neighborhood association that services that area of town and saying, hey, can I, schedule me in for the next one? I'd like to come in and give a short presentation of what my vision is for that site. That goes a long ways. I hear it from numerous applicants and developers that we've had, and they say, hey, I took your advice, went and knocked on a few doors and spoke to, and they loved it. People like that. And I think just getting that assurance from the community on the ground, and us getting that as well, goes a long ways and will, have a positive outcome for you.
Very happy to do that.
Yeah, so those are my suggestions. And
all right, thank you.
I'd like to
thank you very much. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, push green. Okay, motion passes. Item 75B, this is the time and place to open a public hearing. Zoning ordinance amendment number 2019-05 to amend several sections of Charter 41 zoning of the Santa Ana Municipal Code relating to accessory dwelling units, planning and building agency. City Manager, is there a presentation or any questions on this?
Yes, sir, there is.
Very good. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This is a request for approval of zoning ordinance to Chapter 41 of the Santa Ana Municipal Code relating to accessory dwelling units. A little background on the ordinance. Beginning in 2003, the State of California Legislature enacted AB 1866, many of us known colloquially as the Granny Flat Ordinance, which encouraged the production and use of secondary ADU dwelling units to provide affordable housing. The City of Santa Ana adopted a local ordinance to address and comply with state law in 2003. Between the period of 2003 and 2017, the city received approximately 40 applications based on those regulations. And the state of California actually looked around to many other communities and also saw a likely same lower number of units produced, did a whole series of changes to broaden the authority of the state and reduce the authority of local governments to regulate ADUs, and made a series of changes through SB 1069 and 2299. And we, in turn, had to adopt an ordinance also complying with state law in 2018. Since 2018, I believe the housing issue has really became a lot more significant and a forefront issue for the state as many communities. Late in 2019, the state legislature approved a suite of bills and legislation that even further basically restricted local ability to regulate ADUs. That suite of legislation came in effect in January 1st of 2020, essentially making our existing ordinance null and void. Between then and now, we had to work with the state to draft an ordinance that would be considered to be in compliance with state law, and therefore we have moved forward with a proposal of the draft ordinance. What is an ADU? Basically, an ADU is either legally defined as an accessory dwelling unit with complete independent living facility for one or more person, and generally taking in three forms. It could be either attached, as you see in the upper right there, or it could be detached, as you see in the lower left, or it could be a conversion of existing house, and you can see that it's outlined in blue there. And these are the types of form that an accessory dwelling unit could take as part of an existing development of a single-family dwelling or as a new development. In addition to that, there's also what's known as a JADU, which is a junior ADU. And what it is that it's basically a conversion of an existing room in an existing dwelling that can have a maximum of 500 square feet. It is basically considered an efficient unit that needs to have cooking facility as well as requiring interior entry and insert connection to sanitation facilities. So having bathrooms, having potential cooking facility and a sink is required, but it is much more flexible in terms of a junior ADU that is a conversion of an existing room in a house. So, as I mentioned earlier, the suite of bills that was passed last year, in summary, really restricted the local abilities to regulate and legislate locations where it could be permitted in terms of the zones. It is now permitted in any family, single-family, multifamily, or any mixed-use zone that allow for commercial and residential. There is no minimum lot size as would have been set before. Rear yard setback, there is a 4-foot setback for new ADUs, but not conversion of an existing accessory building already on site. In terms of the number of ADUs, the regulations now allow potentially on a single family lot up to 3 units. The primary house, the ADU itself, and then the JADU. So whereas before you potentially could have 2 2 units on a lot, now you potentially can have up to 3. It also allowed for the conversion of 25% of the units that's developed on multifamily dwelling by converting non-habitable space into ADUs. This is significant. Before local regulations, we don't permit that, but this is significant. And then also allow for ADU on multifamily dwelling lots as well. Other than that, we also regulate the size, a minimum size of 220 square feet, a maximum size of about 1,000 square feet, and also limiting our ability to regulate lot coverage. This is basically
high level. And,
sure. Yeah. This is basically a table that summarizes the changes, but in essence, our regulations is mirroring the state law. We're not deviating from that, and we're strictly staying within the parameter of the state regulations so that we can gain compliance. We have had correspondence with the state ACD as well as stakeholders, an advocate group for home ownership and housing advocate. They both have reviewed our ordinance and made comments, and state ACD has found our regulations, proposed draft ordinance to be in compliance with state law. The Planning Commission at the meeting of February 10th voted 5-0 to recommend the City Council to adopt the regulations. Therefore, we are recommending that the City Council adopt the regulations approving zoning amendment 2019-05.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions from the council for the staff member?
Mr. Pro Tem.
Council member Becerra.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So at the end of the day, the bottom line for this whole proposal before us is simply to accommodate changes in state law. We've already, as a city, had an ADU ordinance on the books. This is just merely to accommodate the changes in state law, correct?
Correct. Currently, technically, we don't have an ordinance because state law nulled and voided our pre-existing ordinance.
Which they did before when we had an ADU ordinance. Then they came in and rained down on us with their preferred changes, and then we had to do this pretty much the same drill that we're doing now, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Iglesias.
Those were pretty much my questions, and I remember having a conversation with our city manager, and she was stating that even if we didn't want to do this, the state trumps what we want to enforce in our city. So this is just saying that we're going to be able, that we're going to, whatever they tell us, we're going to have to do. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. And now I'm going to go ahead and have the members of the public speak. I have Matthew Fertal. One speaker card only, is that correct, Madam? Okay, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. And my name's Matt Fertel. I'm here on behalf of my son, Jeffrey. Jeffrey resides at 1801 North Bush Street. And we were here a couple of years ago at the 2018 amendment. And we had spoke before the council, and staff followed our request and recommended that the allowance for ADUs be also included in the professional zone where properties are developed with a single-family residence. So on page 2 of your staff report, you can see in the chart that your existing ADU ordinance allowed an ADU in a professional zone where the property was developed with a single-family residence. In the proposed amendment tonight, the allowance for an ADU in the professional zone with a single-family residence is not included. I don't know why. Staff has not just mirrored what was previously approved, but it does not include professional zone where a single-family home exists. So we're asking that the council concur with what was already in your ADU to allow ADUs in a professional zone where a single-family home exists today. And since the intent of this amendment is to be more permissive, more inclusive, that the state is asking that include mixed-use developments, why not keep the provision that the city already has? So that's our request tonight.
It's your 3 minutes, sir, so I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, so that's all.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you
your
very much, sir.
consideration. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming down. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing now. I'm going to bring it back to council. Councilmember Sarmiento.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. And a question for our Director of Planning. And thank you, Mr. Fertel. It's good to see you. I know that you were with the city of Garden Grove for many years, so thank you for your service to our neighboring city there. Any response to Mr. Fertel's questions?
Thank you. I did get a chance to look into the question and was able to respond back via email to Mr. Fertel prior to the meeting. A little background on this. So state law indicates and requires that the city allows for ADU in any residentially zoned property that allows for residential, including mixed-use zones. The staff, in reviewing with the Planning Commission, looked at the professional zone. Currently in our city, the professional zone does not permit for residential by right. Any residential that are existing on there is legal and non-conforming. So we have two code section, one that addresses the goal and development standards for professional office, which does not allow for residential. We also have a legal non-conforming code section that talks about the desire to bring property into conformity rather than exacerbating the nonconformity by either looking at how to reduce the nonconformity of a property. So the staff's rationale and Plan Commission for recommending this is that we are removing the legal nonconforming situation for professional zone property so that we can meet the intent of the zoning code while also meeting the intent of the state law, which only requires that ADU be permitted in residentially zoned properties in the city.
So do we have any, properties in professionally zoned areas that were once residences?
We have properties in residentially zoned area that have legal non-conforming residents on them. one of the recommendations that we made to this situation in the area in our review of it is that this area could potentially be made conforming by changing the general plan and the zoning so that it matches the use on the site. Often we don't recommend considering that because of the area or the adjacent land uses. However, in this area, potentially, since we are going through the general plan update process, that could be something that the applicant, Mr. Fertel, can work with staff to potentially discuss of a coordination between the land use for the area and our current update process.
So he could have some remedy there if...
Correct. And that would be bringing the property actually into conforming with the current uses in the area.
Now, which one is, I guess, closer to what state law? Because I think, as was mentioned, our decision tonight is to be more compliant with the state
Correct.
law, right, regarding ADUs.
The state law, when
is it
enacted in this present,
exclusive to residences, or is it?
It's a minimum requirements. It doesn't limit. If the city locally wants to allow for that to occur, the state encourages it. But the state law in this case set the minimum that the city would have to comply with in terms of what's required.
Okay, so.
Councilmember Iglesias.
For these ADUs, how many do you anticipate that that would come before us for, for a permit? And also, if they are built, are these part of our RENA numbers? Can we count these?
To answer your second question, yes, we can count these towards ARENA number by working with ACD. It's not just a simple of recognizing them as affordable. We have to go through a process of certification them with ACD, but the answer is yes.
Okay,
in terms of the number of units since January of this year, we have had 29 applications to the city. Just to do some comparison, if I can have the chart up. But essentially in 2018, we have 103. In 2019, we have had 97. To date, March 12th, we have 29. So just taking the time frame and extrapolating it out, we anticipate that this year we'll have more applications than the last 2 years.
Okay, but we'll take a concerted effort to make sure that we add these to our RENA numbers, what we're responsible for building?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good. Let me bring it back to council. What is the pleasure of the council? Is there a motion?
Mr. Pro Tem, I want to thank Mr. Fertel for coming by because I'm looking at the zoning map now, and it amazes me that both sides of Bush Street are zoned professional. And knowing that the existing area is predominantly housing. So, that's another question for another day as to how we got there. But I think at this point, I think our director makes a good case as to why we should proceed as recommended. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we go ahead and place this ordinance on first reading and authorize the publication of the title.
And I'll second that with the understanding that, Min, if you can work with Mr. Fertel and his son to make sure that they're able to go ahead and, work through the general plan amendment and make sure that they get relief there. Thank you.
Very good. All those in favor, push green. Okay, motion passes. We're going to move on to item 85A. Councilmember Iglesias.
So this is just to add to what we were talking about when you made your presentation, Lisa, regarding the host at the park. And I think this is something else. What I'm asking is my colleagues to consider directing city manager to explore opportunities for food vendors to operate in city parks to encourage greater utilization of the space and deter potential transients. So my thought in talking to Lisa and her staff is the more presence we have at the parks, it deters, individuals, and then they become individuals from coming that, want to use the parks for not for the benefit of the community, but just more for the benefit of illegal behavior and stuff like that. what I believe, this having individuals being our eyes and ears at the parks would encourage also families to come and be able to enjoy the parks more. Especially seeing, what happens like at Centennial Park. I know that we do have a vendor there, but they're part of Santa Ana College because they have their activities there. But if we could have, for staff to look like an RFP for, opening it up to different individuals to come to our parks, I think that would be a benefit for us, and also too would help the security in our parks. But I will leave it up to the staff to see, how the operations of it. But I think it would encourage, and I've seen it like in bigger cities where they have this, like when you travel, this encourages people have coffee, just go out there, have fun, and bring your family. And then also would help us, I would say at Centennial too, because we're talking about the doggy park, so that'll also encourage more activity there. So what I'm asking is my colleagues, to help us with this, so we can direct our city manager to explore these opportunities at our parks.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions? Councilmember Becerra.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Iglesias, for bringing this forward. My question for you, though, is when you say food vendors, are we talking food trucks? Are we talking brick and mortar? What are you envisioning?
More mobile, like food trucks, or like sometimes, even the carts too, because I think they have to go through a permit too, through the city. So, allowing them an opportunity to be able to participate in that.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it forward, especially when we were earlier talking about the idea of eyes on the street, so to speak, or eyes in the parks. So it's an interesting concept. I'd be open to seeing what staff comes back with, but yeah, I have some thoughts and concerns, but I would rather wait to see what staff comes back with before flushing it out.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilwoman Iglesias, for bringing this forward. I just thinking about the item as I was going over the agenda over the weekend, I think this is it gives us an opportunity to have a broader conversation on activating our park spaces. And I know Councilwoman Iglesias touched on that if we're present, if more people are present, it's going to deter negative activity. And in a way that we could look at not just food trucks, but just more activations at all our parks across the board. Whether it's one weekend having like we see the food trucks come up to the Civic Center here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If we could have a day of the month where, hey, Centennial Park or Memorial Park or any one of these parks with larger spaces, we're going to have a food truck vendors come out. Everyone purchase their own vending, and I know there's a lot of food trucks that high-end food trucks that travel around, that people like and people follow on social media, and people follow them on Twitter, and I've driven down to San Diego chasing a grilled cheese truck that's popular. And then so these are things that I kind of see, not just allowing food trucks to just sit there all day, but activating our park spaces where we allow these different food trucks for a couple hours a day to congregate and have business. Whatever staff could come back with, different ideas that you've seen throughout the country, what other areas are doing, other cities, would be really great.
Great. Thank you for those comments, Councilmember Peñalos. I think staff has its direction, and we'll see it come back to us.
Certainly, I would just ask, though, timing-wise, not in the immediate future, because in light of the Orange County Health Officer's order concerning gatherings, I don't think this would be appropriate to move forward immediately with it.
Understood, but it will come back to the council.
I agree.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Mayor Pro Tem. We are on 85B. This is to discuss and consider the direction for the city attorney and the clerk of the council to draft a resolution or ordinance to enable the clerk of the council to verify and enforce Santa Ana City Charter Section 401 residency requirements as applied to the mayor and city council members and incumbent mayor and council members. And this is an item for council members Becerra and Peñalosa. The floor is yours, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. Council members, which one would like to go first? Councilmember Becerra, go ahead. Oh. Do we have public comments on that? Okay, very good. I'd like to see you could start there. Okay, very good. We have 3 public comments. Evan Isaac? Is that you, sir? Yes. Come on forward. And then we'll have, God, can't even read this thing. Elia Valdez, is he here today? Oh, there you are. Okay, so you'll go second, and then I can't read the writing. Anyone in the audience submit? Is that you, Mario? Okay, you'll be third. Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, Your Lordship the Mayor and members of the Council. My name is Evans Udiambo Arek. I moved to this great land of America about 3 years ago. My purpose of coming here, I didn't know that in the council meeting it is open to members of the public. Somebody told me you can raise any issue when there is a council meeting. The reason why I came here is that I moved to Santa Ana. I live on 16th Street, and I have a problem with given the fact that I'm a student of London, a master student, and I'm planning to be a researcher of Harvard Law School. So I have a lot of time of studies, and I moved to a low-paid rent unit here in Santa Ana. And the problem I have is my roommate has been really harassing me. But if I don't go in detail, the reason why I came, yesterday I was beaten and I was strangled. There are 2 people. They were about to kill me. I called the police. Everywhere in the world where you go, if you believe in God and Jesus Christ, the third person who your life is in is the police. When I called the police, I've been going there. The police came. I'm the victim. The police went ahead and issued me with a ticket that is like an arrest. So what I was coming here, because I tried even to call and meet the police chief, I was trying to seek an appointment to know how somebody call a police, then this person become a victim. I don't have my mother, neither any parent or any relative of mine. And the security, these people strangled me. I have here the X-ray report. I have all those things. Then still now, I still have the band here today. When I came from the hospital, I have all this medical report. And the police went ahead. These people came together, and then police pulled me out, went ahead, talked to them, and issue me the ticket that I will go to court. So I asked the police then, I made a mistake of calling you. And one of their seniors said that if you call us again on this thing, then we'll put you in jail. So that really perplexed me. I wanted a most police officer to tell me, or whoever is on top, who police responds to tell me that if a member of the public, you are being attacked, I was strangled, I couldn't even turn this way. My necklace for the last 2 days, I couldn't turn. And I have nobody to call to. I called the police to come and rescue me, my life. Then that same police is coming to give me a ticket and telling me that if I call again, I'll be arrested. Your Worship, the Mayor, I have here everything with me, with the doctor's medical report, even that police issue that I have his number here, and the tickets I have here, 2 tickets he gave me, I have here. This is his card, is called somebody Carolo, I'm sorry, I don't know how to read the name, somebody Carillo 3424. And I feel that I studied, the reason why I'm going to Harvard is because that I believe in justice, social justice, and the rule of law and human rights. I feel that the justice here is being miscarried by the police. I'm the victim. I came there, I didn't take law into my hand. Since I came here 3 years ago, I've never touched anybody. Then I'm being charged with battery. And these people, one was holding me this way, and the other one was boxing me. The police said there was no witness because these 2 people colluded together to injure me.
Very
so
good,
that's
sir.
why I came here to be helped.
Thank you for coming down here. This gentleman right over here, that's help. He's going to listen to you. The gentleman in uniform over there, that's our deputy chief. He'll be happy to take your information down
Thank you.
and address your issues. Thank you very much for coming down. Thank you for waiting. I know it's been a long evening. Thank you, sir. Elliot Valdez, followed by Mario. I can't read your last name, Mario, but okay. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. This was actually, I was unprepared, but I just came for the memory of Albert Blas. Richard Salvera, I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure a very respected person. Just wanted to take a few moments to recognize Albert Blas. Worked in the yard fleet mechanic since March of 1999. Beloved father, of course, and worked for many years for the city. Worked for law enforcement, working on their SWAT vehicles, everything from Santa Ana Fire Department. Many years of hard work. Basically grew up close to Delhi, the Delhi community. Grew up here, went to school here, had children here. And it's just my honor to keep saying Albert Blas, just recognize him. If you ever hear his name, definitely somebody who was very important in this community. Grew up here, and definitely a lot of us in the yard, water department, water production, sewer, everyone there, parks department, fleet, law enforcement, worked on traffic, motorcycles, and everyone. I'm very honored to be able to once again be up here. That's all it was. I didn't realize I had an opportunity to speak about him. But once again, great man. I just wanted to make sure that anytime anybody heard his name, Albert Blas, that he is remembered. And I didn't realize there was someone else, Richard Salvera. My respects to him also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And last speaker card that I have is Mario. I don't have the last name, Mario? Chavez. Mario Chavez. Yes. Thank you, sir. Hello. Come on forward.
I'm here to speak on behalf of the virus that's going on in the nation, actually globally. I just got off the phone with Lou Correa a couple of minutes before entering the chambers. He says that we're working on a plan to give $1,000 to every low-income family to make sure that we can help them with this crisis, to provide food, water, and whatever shelter we can. I'm also working with local nonprofit organizations to see how we could shelter the people living in the streets. There's also a lot of people living and families living in cars behind parks, like in Miles School Park. You can find a lot of communities living inside houses and cars. They don't have no access to this information that we're providing. So we're starting a grassroots team that has hazmat suits and everything, just to stay prepared and cautious to go find these families that need this help drastically. So I'm just here to announce that Lou Correa is actively working on projects and that we're going to have a grassroots team here in Santa Ana. I don't know what the city wants to do to support this grassroots team, to go reach out to these families that we have no access to us, that are living in RVs and trailers. With that said, have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Mario. Okay, we're going to go back to item 85B. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Peñalosa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. So 85B, to discuss and consider directing city attorney and clerk of the council to draft a resolution or ordinance to enable the clerk of the council to verify and enforce Santa Ana City Charter Section 401 residency requirements as applied to mayor and council member candidates and incumbent mayor and council members. The reason why I wanted, and I want to thank Councilmember Becerra for joining efforts in bringing this item forward, is because for as long as I could remember, I've always heard about the monkey business that goes on throughout election time in the city of Santa Ana. It's led to numerous headlines, election after election. DA looking into Santa Ana City Council candidate. Ex-Santa Ana City Councilman pleads guilty to election fraud. DA investigating residency fraud claims against ex-councilman. Santa Ana Planning Commissioner resigns amid residency questions. These are headlines that have just, drowned our entire city. Every time there's an election, it happens over and over and over. Unfortunately, the section in our charter that addresses this is a little weak, which is another topic of conversation that I'd like to eventually work on with my colleagues. But, just in this, special election that the city's coming up, there was already residency allegations. I heard that some Fountain Valley residents were trying to run for the seat. And it's disgusting, it's embarrassing, it's inappropriate that every election we have to deal with this. So I wanted to bring the conversation forward, and so did Councilmember Becerra, because Councilmember Becerra, out of everybody, knows what happens when there's election and residency fraud taking place. So it's important that we look at this and give my goal, I'm saying our goal because I know we both agree, is to have the clerk of the council have some kind of policy that clearly states what the residency requirements are when it comes to issuing nomination papers for any candidate for mayor, for city council or mayor. And that includes incumbents. In our charter it says, that we should reside where we live, and I believe that should be the case. And there just needs to be more enforcement, more of a policy directive that really addresses this. And I don't think there is one. And that's why we put it on here, so that us as colleagues could do what's right for our city and the integrity of our elections and address this. So, Councilmember Becerra?
Well, thank you, Councilmember Pelosa. And yes, you and I have discussed this, and I think we're pretty much in sync on what we'd like to see. And bringing this before the full body here, really at the end of the day, what this is a clarification of the means to verify candidate qualifications according to the current requirements in the city charter. So, as Councilmember Pelosa said, we're not looking at revising the qualifications, but really enabling our city clerk to be able to assess the qualifications. So as our clerk is tasked with, deciding whether it's an appropriate action to issue nomination papers, and then what kind of materials are presented, we just want to make sure that this body concurs what those items are and enables our clerks so that we don't have a fire drill every time there's an election. And as we've seen this year, there's a couple of elections and some that we didn't anticipate. But I think we could lock this in, hopefully either via an ordinance or resolution. And I think the conversation tonight, I'm hopeful, will veer towards directing our staff to come back to us with some proposed guidelines so that we don't have this discussion again. And as Councilmember Pelosa brought up, we also don't have those headlines anymore. So thank you, Councilmember Pelosa, and I would like to hear from my colleagues, but my hope is that we go ahead and, obviously given the timing of things today, the appropriate timeline will have staff bring forth something for us.
Very good. Councilmember Iglesias.
So my question would be for the city clerk and maybe the city attorney. What's right now in the charter, of the documents or the information that you're requesting from the candidates in order for them to, because I believe what we're talking about here is more residency rather than the qualifications. So what's on the charter that you're currently asking of the candidates?
So prior to issuing nomination papers to a candidate, the charter requires the city clerk to verify that a person is a qualified voter, and separately to verify that the person has lived in the ward from which they're being nominated for at least 30 days prior to the date that they pull their papers. Those are the only two requirements. I've only worked with two different city clerks in my tenure, and those clerks have determined on their own which documents that they are going to use to assess the second criteria. So one clerk might decide that they want to see a lease or a deed or a copy of a driver's license, and I can let this city clerk tell you what kind of documents she was requiring. So each clerk has been left on their own to decide what type of documents they want to accept.
Is there a state standard on the information that the city clerk needs to ask for when it comes to the requirements?
So in the elections code, there is some direction. It says you can prove residency by evidence of X, Y, and Z, but there's nothing that we can look to from the state or otherwise that says these are the 5 documents you shall rely upon. So there are some charter cities in the state of California that have adopted their own ordinances which outline what type of documents will be acceptable.
So, pretty much, what did you follow more of the state standard or?
So what I used was the guidelines that were provided by the DMV, although their purpose of proving their residency wasn't the same as this. So I went ahead and used that state guideline, which includes any government official issued document, voter registration of a minimum of 30 days, registered at that address, utility bills, valid driver's license with the current residence address, filed income tax returns, official school records, and employment documents. However, some of those documents may have, like, for example, the income tax return doesn't show 30-day residency. So there's some documents. So going off of the state guideline isn't the best. But that's all that was available.
Okay, so then just to understand then your request, I'll call you David, but Councilmember Peñalosa, is more of bringing more like a uniform of requirements of items that as a body you would want for us to say, yes, these are appropriate, this is appropriate, and this is appropriate. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, well, yes, basically just, us collectively draft the policy with the city manager and the city attorney that the city clerk has she could go by, that is strongly worded, that has teeth, that is enforceable. Even the one of the missing, I think, keywords from the driver's license was valid driver's license, right? Correct?
No, it does state valid driver's license with current residence address, but maybe the missing component would be within 30 days at that address.
Because currently our city charter says 30-day residency, but the driver's license that somebody presents could have been issued the day before at the DMV with that same address, but that doesn't have a 30-day window, and it should. Everything should be 30 days and prior to that, nothing short of that. That's just my opinion. The affidavit from the registrar of voters, when somebody registers to vote, it should be over 30 days. Not, I registered to vote at this address a week ago, but I've lived there for 30 days. I mean, these are all requirements that I would like to see, strengthened, because there's so many loopholes and it's so weak that causes us to have these unnecessary headlines every time there's an election.
And I know one thing that you had also, I would say, recommended in the past is how do we go about just requiring more than 30 days? Is that something that you're looking into this?
Well, that would require a charter change because it is in our charter, which would have to go to the voters if we were to go down that route. But currently, we could adopt a policy that would, or was it an ordinance or a policy, Madam City Attorney? I'm not.
So when you have a charter that makes the requirement, you can, they're like akin to regulations. You have a statute and then you have a regulation. And so you could adopt a policy by resolution, or you could give direction to your city clerk if you wanted to incorporate some type of direction on the type of documents she should be using.
Okay, so you would
Councilmember,
right?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Solorio.
Thank you. I agree where we're heading, and giving procedures and clarity is always a good thing. I think something that we're not hearing as much about that becomes a question is who validates, or what kind of vetting or investigation is there, because sometimes there just may be a question about a document, and I'm fine with internal investigation reviews, but it also needs to be applied equally to all, right? So that just because you think somebody's from Fountain Valley or somewhere else, that you don't just use those procedures on one person and not on everybody else, just as an equity thing. And then my question related to the last thing that was brought up, question for Sonia. I know there's been some movement, but I don't know where it's at, just kind of case study, case law regarding residency requirements. I know there's been challenges, but I forget kind of what's the law of the land, if you will, or not. I know many are saying that even 1 day is sufficient, or 30. I forget what it is. Can you bring us up on that issue? And I bring it up just because sometimes, even though we may put something in place, that doesn't mean somebody can't challenge it on other grounds. And so, if you can give us an update on that.
So there's much case law.
Or make it legal, so make it strong.
There's much case law on this issue of residency, and usually the courts will balance how long is the residency requirement for the particular issue? So how long do you have to be a resident before you can run for council? How long do you have to be a resident in LA County before you can apply for general relief? How long do you need to be a resident of California to apply for social services? And different standards are applied based on, I guess what the courts look at is, are we putting a restriction on some protected activity? So running for office is a pretty protected activity in our country. And so if you had a 1-year residency, for example, that is not likely to meet the legal standard. 30 days appears to be like, okay, 30 days, you've settled in, we want to show that you're actually living there. So I think imposing longer than 30 days, I'd have to look at some more of the case law. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I think requiring more than 30 days might be challenging. We can take a look at it because the courts will want a very minimum restriction on allowing someone to run.
But cities that have 30 days, it seems to be okay.
30 days seems to be just fine.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Sarmiento, and then Becerra.
It's getting late.
Thank you.
It's getting late. And I'll be quick because I know this is our last item, and I think we all want to get home and make sure our staff gets home. So I think that, some of the things that are clear is that the authority to review the criteria for residency vests with the city clerk. So he or she will have that information gathered, and I guess what I understand the recommendation is to come up with a more consistent policy or set of criteria, because I know that the election code, has indicia of proof, but it's very subject to challenge, and I think everybody's inconsistent with what they use. So that's more guidance than it is anything else. I don't think there's anything specific. So I do think if staff can maybe bring something back that's consistent with other charter cities. The beauty of a charter city is that we can be more specific and we can set community standards to our policy. So that'll give, I think, our clerk, whoever that is, when they have somebody come in, be able to ask for specific criteria and specific information, because right now people will bring in random things and some of it looks fine, and I think it also is inconsistent, and that's never how government should be. It should be very predictable. These are the things that everybody is expected, and we treat people uniformly. So that would be my only comment, and I think I'm fine with having it come back to us.
Councilmember Becerra.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. To reiterate, this is not about changing the charter. This is not about adding time to the requirements of residency. This is more about simply saying, look, as we've got elections coming up, we're not going to be changing the charter before November at the very earliest. So while we have upcoming elections, let's just make sure that the way that our clerk is able to operate is consistent. So whatever she accepts as documents, and you know what? We live in a litigious society. Things get challenged, but you know what we do? We get up here and we try to make laws that work. So we're just going to have to, put on, get up in the morning and do it. So with that being said, today, I just really want to reiterate, we're not wading into the waters of trying to change the charter. We're simply reinforcing what the charter already says, and we can come back. This council has a charter review committee that will be looking at some potential changes to potentially put forth to the voters in November. But in the meantime, this is meant to be a more immediate measure that simply, if this body agrees, will, I think, empower our clerk to make sure that folks that are seeking to run for public office are not coming in with goofy paperwork that doesn't make any sense, and then all of a sudden, again, I'm going to go back to what Councilmember Penaloza said, I don't think we need to have the headlines.
I just wanted to also add, there is a separate provision in your charter which says that the city council shall be the judge of the qualifications of any council candidate. And so I think it is through that charter provision that gives this council the legal authority to adopt some type of resolution which would specify the documents that are acceptable. I also think there's some value to having consistency so that the acceptable documents are not dependent upon who your elections official is, but it becomes part of the fabric of this community and what you find is acceptable to you and your residents. So there is an example. We took a quick look at the city of Fresno has a policy, and their policy was adopted by resolution, and their charter is very similar to yours with respect to the 30-day residency requirement.
Real quick, Mayor Pro Tem, I just want to what you're saying. I just want to make sure that we also understand This is not meant to become, all of a sudden we're going to take that particular section of the charter and start investigating each other and going down that path. One, in my conversation with the city attorney, that's definitely not something afforded to us. And again, this is purely, I would almost say, almost an administrative exercise. It's really just to clarify some provisions for the clerk to be able to operate. That's it.
Councilmember Peñalosa, and then I'll wrap
Thank you,
it up.
Mr. Pro Tem. And to add that, this isn't just, nobody said that this was going to be something used on selected people. This was going to be anybody who wants to run for office in our city, you're welcome to. I encourage it. If I could be of any assistance, please, but there should be a policy. I want to be weary of saying, as long as we're consistent with other cities, because that doesn't work. A lot of all these other cities, you have these dirty politics that, lead to these shenanigans that happen all the time. So, I do like the policy that was adopted by resolution by the city of Fresno. I looked it over very carefully, and it is something that we could consider because, again, to avoid all of the headlines and the nearly $1 million bill we had just last year because of this very issue. I would be, to not spend too much time talking on this right now because we can't take any action, but I would like to see staff come back with a policy or a resolution that we could that would fall under the clerk of the council, where she could have that authority and clear direction of what is going. We're not changing the residency requirement. I'm not asking for all that because that's charter changes. But I'm saying what documents should the clerk of the council ask of any candidate to bring forward when pulling nomination papers. And I'd be as comfortable if my colleagues agreed to put an ad hoc together. If staff needs a clear direction on to draft this policy, I'd be happy to volunteer. That's an idea, but I mean, those are my final comments, Mr. Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the two council members for bringing this up. This is something that this council has talked about for the last couple of years, and then things changed, and now look, we had some issues, and now we're going to address them. I appreciate that. Real quick, I also believe that having a policy like this or a resolution would actually deter fraud. And if one of the things we should look at also, other than it says driver's license, you want to use real ID, because that's what we need to go. And, you have to show proof of residence and all that when you're going to get your real ID. So I think that's something we should look at. I think that change is going to take place by October. We're all going to have to get a real ID. So thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to, and the staff is clear on the direction. Very good.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Very good.
Can you repeat what you guys are going to...
With some options.
I understand that the city clerk and our office, city attorney's office, are to work together to bring the city council a resolution or some type of policy adopted by resolution, which would clarify the documents that would be acceptable to our elections official in verifying residency for purposes of nominating someone for city council.
Okay, very good. We're going to move on to item 90A, the city manager comments, since we already had public comments.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have about 3 items. The first one, I just want to call to attention that today a very important action was taken by the County of Orange, and the Orange County Health Officer issued an order to slow the spread of COVID-19. It's a very comprehensive order, but what it does do is it places a prohibition on all public and private gatherings of any number of people. The prohibition does apply to professional, social, and community gatherings, regardless of their sponsor, that are not required, that are not engaged in essential activities, and that goes on to list a lot of the essential activities. We've been already receiving a lot of questions at the city, although it is a county order, not a city-issued order. Some of the questions pertain to restaurants, which as of today are no longer allowed to have dining in, only takeout and delivery. So for our restaurants in our city, I just wanted to provide the number if they have any questions that they can contact. And it's HCA Environmental Health, and the phone number is 714-433-6000. And then for just general citizens, if they have any questions as to, how to comply with this and what all does it entail, I have another phone number for that, and it's 1-800-564-8448. And then my other two items very quickly. Census 2020, it's underway. Santa Ana residents probably have already received the information in the mail, and we are encouraging everybody to respond to the census online, over the phone, or through the mail. We do have a copy of the online form on our website in 12 additional languages other than English, and we also have a video guide that shows people how to complete the online questionnaire. And then also, even though we are under the quarantine of COVID-19, we still are attempting to conduct budget meetings to engage the community in the budget preparation and also the strategic planning. So we're going to be doing a lot online and through social media outlets. And our finance director at the Comlink meeting, which is scheduled for March 26th, which is being done Facebook Live and full compliance of the order, will be kicking off those series of meetings. And that's all, sir.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to council member comments. Council member Becerra.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I want to thank my colleagues for adjourning tonight's meeting in the memory of Richard Salvetta, who passed away on March 6th. He was a longtime resident of Santa Ana, particularly down in the Republic Homes neighborhood. He originally came from Ohio, and he's survived by his wife Lydia and their 3 children and their 4 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren. I also want to express my condolences to Albert Blas and his family. I appreciate the work that our employees do, and so I'm happy that we're adjourning in memory of him as well. I also want to let former council member Rob Richardson know that I and many of us are pulling for him here in Santa Ana as he wrestles with some health issues, so just keep him in your thoughts. And on to another thing that I think Rob would appreciate, and that is I would like to have planning staff at the next available opportunity to update the Planning Commission and the City Council on the progress of the outcome of the facade reveal for the First American site on 5th and Main Streets. It's been my understanding that we've seen some of the 1960s facade peeled off, and we're seeing some really beautiful Art Deco treatment underneath, and so hopefully as that proceeds, we'll see a facade that has enough integrity to be incorporated into the project that this council approved. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our city staff, whether it's our city management, whether it's our full-time staff or our part-time staff. All of you guys are, you guys are amazing. And as we go through these tough times, I think it's important to just really appreciate everything that you guys are doing, because I know that as we start to look at what we're going to do during this particular situation with COVID-19, there's going to be a lot of different asks of staff. There's going to be a lot of different opportunities to innovate, but at the same time, requirements for you to be nimble and to have to really just kind of figure out a way to get the job done. So I don't envy some of the tasks that are in front of you, but I just want you to know that I think this council appreciates all that you do, and we're excited that in this time that you guys are the ones that are going to help keep the city running and moving forward. And then just to our residents and our community and our business community as well, I would just, it's easy enough to say it, but I definitely ask just, stay calm. This is not the time to panic. And I think, really, it's kind of an interesting opportunity as we are asked to limit our social interactions, but to really kind of take the time with our families and, really, just appreciate what we have and, really try to keep ourselves healthy, and with that, I just hope that we can take this opportunity to come together, not just as a nation, not just as a state or county, but as a city, as our fellow neighbors, and, help each other out. Now, we do have to observe social distancing, but, as some of the folks in our community who might be a little more susceptible to the virus, as if they were to go out into certain arenas such as our grocery stores and whatnot, I would ask that, if we're able to help them out, please take the opportunity to volunteer and help them as well. But with that, this will probably be our last meeting where we're all together here as a council. So I'm looking forward to interacting with many of you on our, what is it going to be, WebEx?
But I'm about to ask for the 3-minute button here. Go ahead.
So thank you very much.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councilmember Ben Sarmiento.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. And yeah, we want to come together just as long as we're 6 feet apart from one another. So, no, I want to start with something that inspired me today. Was one of our 7-Eleven owners is going to be providing 2 slices of pizza and a small drink for students who show their Santa Unified School District ID for the entire week. And so we know that a lot of these children are used to going to school, and we're used to seeing them go to school, and unfortunately, they won't be, and they'll be learning in a different environment, but they also receive their meals there. So we know that people like our friends at some of the 7-Eleven stores are doing their share, and hopefully it inspires others to do theirs as well. I want to thank staff as well, and I kind of want to go a little bit above and beyond, because I know that sometimes when moments like this, and I guess, when I was a young council member, we were living through the recession, and we came very close to having to file a bankruptcy, and we were staring down a Chapter 9, and, our solvency was in question. We were down to $3 million in our operating fund, and we're a $500 million organization. So, we've had some scary moments here. Some of us have lived through 9/11. I know I was in a federal building when that happened. So this is a little different than that. And, I just want to say, look, thank you to our staff, thank you to our employees, thank you for the executives that are a calming influence on everybody, because that's what we have to do to be able to address this, is just understand that this is something that's going to be difficult for us to work through and to live through. But to the extent that those of us who are in positions of making a difference in people's lives, we show our humanity, we're compassionate, and I know that conversations with our city manager and other staff, we know we're going to be reaching out to our employees, talking to them about some of the very unsettling changes that are going to happen in their lives. They're not going to be able to go to work as they once did all the time. We're going to try to do our best to absorb them into other areas and hopefully reduce the harm and reduce the impact to people's lives, because it is very unsettling when change happens with everything else that's going on. I do want to say I'm a little disappointed with our friends across the street at the county, because it is something that all of us were hoping they'd step up and maybe help us deal with the issues over at the courtyard. We know that that is a very dangerous environment for many people, because we have so many people under one roof, and that isn't really addressing what I think the directives, not only federally but statewide as well. So we understand that we're on our own, and we're going to be fine, because I think we have thoughtful leaders here. I think we have intelligent decisions, and I think we have a good direction to make sure that our friends and families and our residents are going to be safe. I know that the school district is facing their challenges as well, having a school district as large as ours, 51,000 students that are going to be out, and to the extent that they are going to hopefully step up and make sure that there is sufficient meals and child care and whatever else they can do. I know that they're concerned about what we do in the city, but I'm very concerned about what they do with our mutual constituents, which are the most susceptible, which are our children. So I hope they step up, do what they can with respect to care for their children, but also making sure that they're sensitive to the parents that we know are going through some very, very difficult moments. But I want to thank all of us up here for supporting the emergency ordinance and its measures. I think that it's a very, very, very profound decisions that we took tonight to help our community and provide relief. And that is something that is very important in light of what's going on. I think those will go a very long way to settle a very nervous and anxious city that we have right now in state and country. So I think we're doing our share as responsible stewards and local elected. So thank you very much. I hope everybody stays safe out there. I know it will be a while before we're together in person once again, but again, remember, this too shall pass.
Councilmember Jose Solorio.
Thank you. First, in addition to the 7-Eleven offer, I know Santa Unified and Garden Grove and probably Orange and Tustin as well, but for sure the two former where most of our students go, they do have a grab and go program where for breakfast and lunch they can go by and get a very nutritious meal. My son Diego went to get his lunch today, and so he was excited about that. Want to thank staff for handling all these issues, really on the fly. I know there's some that think, we're doing too much or not enough, and there's a lot of issues to manage, a lot of people, and want to thank in particular our city manager, Christine Ridge, for her stable leadership during this time period. For the folks at home, I just wish everybody, health and peace. That's really, I think, what it's all about right now. And during more time at home, great time to fill out the census. So good idea there to look for your census form or website or the city's census website to take that off the list. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Peñalosa.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. What is there to say? I know that these past few days have been confusing, worrisome, and stressful for many. And I'd like to assure all of you that the city and this legislative body is taking every safety precaution necessary and closely monitoring the situation as it develops. We have made the decision, as you all are aware, to temporarily close our community centers, our libraries, the Santa Ana Zoo, the police department, lobby, the Family Justice Center, and the Bowers Museum and the Discovery Cube have also temporarily closed through the end of the month. Please note that these decisions are not made lightly and are being made out of an abundance of caution, following guidelines set forth by the Center for Disease and Control, the OC Healthcare Agency, and the Governor's Office. Our public parks remain open, but please use caution and keep a distance from others. I know that some of the programs being offered locally are local school districts servicing our community, like Santa Ana Unified, as my colleagues mentioned, have also taken the precautionary step by temporarily closing our schools, and they're providing free grab-and-go meals for children under 18 at 13 different sites. I know that Saddleback High School, which is my alma mater right down the street, yesterday I believe served about 180 meals to kids that were coming and grabbing. That was a number that I heard, so I'm hoping it's accurate. For more information on that, of course, go to the school district's website, sausd.us. Restaurants have been directed, of course, as we've all heard, to close down for dine-in options, as well as bars and other areas. So I encourage everybody to help out our local businesses, phone in order for lunch, use takeout, Uber Eats, that other one I forget what it's called, Postmates, and help our local businesses because they are also hurting. And it's going to take all of us to protect one another and practice these social distances that we're all been practicing over the last couple of weeks. And also, I just want to remind everybody to not panic buy. There isn't a food supply shortage in any of our grocery stores, and they will restock. It's only causing unnecessary fear, and it's causing unnecessary panic throughout the communities and additional stress on families that don't have that luxury and privilege like a lot of us do to panic buy and bulk buy for weeks on end. And of course, I'd like to remind everybody that our water, Santa Ana water, is award-winning, and it's safe to fill it from the tap. So there's no reason in going out and hoarding all the cases of water at Costco. It's important to know that these closures and changes are not made due to known cases within these numerous public facilities, but to limit the contact amongst individuals and help flatten the curve to exposure. It is up to all of us to make sure we keep our community safe and help stop the spread of this virus, regardless of your age. Everybody says, 65 and over, please stay home. I highly encourage everyone, regardless of what your age is, to stay at home, unless it's necessary to go out. Practice safe distances from people, wash your hands constantly, use hand sanitizer, cover your mouth when you cough. These things are going to help avoid the spread of this coronavirus that we're all, learning about as the days go on. And just wanted to say that since everyone's at home, just like my colleagues mentioned, the Census 2020 invite came in the mail yesterday at my house, and I'll be filling it out sometime this week. So I encourage everybody to fill it out online, because it's gonna, have a huge impact for the next 10 years in the terms of hundreds of millions of dollars that could potentially impact our community from the federal government. So thank you, and stay safe out there.
Councilmember Iglesias.
So I just want to wish everyone, and I hope you guys all had a happy St. Patrick's Day. Hope you're wearing your green, or I'm going to go pinch you. Oh, but I can't because there's a 6 feet. I'll get you back once we're able to touch each other. But one of the things that I wanted to ask the city manager, I know you gave out the number for the businesses for us to call regarding, I think it was, I guess if they had questions on their closures, because I know you gave us one for the general public, which was 1-800-564-8445, but then you had given ones for the businesses.
So the two numbers I gave out are in relation to questions regarding the County of Orange's health officer's order, not the actions that we're taking. And the 800 number would be the one for general questions.
Yes.
And the other one that I gave you is for restaurants who may have questions as to how to implement them.
Okay, but what was that number?
What was it?
Okay, so if you could look for that. I also had a question, because I know you mentioned about, that there's, the social gatherings are, I guess, prohibited now. One of the questions that I've been getting a lot, especially from the churches, is like, what is it that, that they have to abide by? Is it, no more gatherings whatsoever? Because before it was 50, and then it was, it was a recommendation by the president of no more than 10. So what is it now?
Within the health officer's order, it doesn't state a number of individuals. It just says all public and private gatherings of any number of people. So the churches should probably reach out. I don't want to interpret, the County of Orange's order, but I believe that means that they can't have services.
Okay, so then refer them to the same number that you're going to give me.
The general number, and then the one for the restaurants, let me find that again for you. For restaurant questions, it was 714-433-6000.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification. So I just, want to echo what my colleagues have said. It's a time, I believe, that all of us need to be working together to ensure that we get through this. And as you know, I'm big in my faith, and I believe it's a time for us, for those of us who are men and women of faith, for us to start praying for each other. That this too shall pass, and it's something that is, if anything, is strengthening our faith and also our faith, and also it's strengthening our relationships with one another. So, I believe things happen for a reason, and I believe this is bringing us together, and for us to really address the issues and concerns of our community. And one thing that I would like to ask of the city manager, I know that you've sent out the information on social media, and we put a lot of emphasis on the English message that goes out. But if we could start also doing information, sharing information more on the Spanish too, and then Vietnamese. And I know we do that, but one of the concerns that Councilmember Peñalosa brings up, but it's like it's so wordy. So if we could bring it up, that it's something that it's more, I guess, easy for us to really understand what's going on. And if you could do it in all the different languages, it'll be amazing. It'll be an amazing opportunity for the community to get engaged. And I just want to thank staff for all that you guys do. And I know I don't thank you enough, but know that I am very grateful for all that you do, and definitely you guys are all in my prayers. And we have to take care of each other. So thank you so much for taking care of us. And then in return, my commitment is to also take care of you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. The next scheduled meeting is for Tuesday, April 7th, 2020, and we will keep the public posted on that meeting. We might be virtual by then, I hope. And stay strong, Santa Ana. Meeting adjourned.